themselves African Israelites. You believe they are descended from the lost tribes of Israel. They're learning to pay homage to their founder and leader, Ben Ami. In 1966, Ben Ami had a vision to liberate African Americans and return them to the Holy Land. People followed the call, and now the community is firmly established. 900 children have been born here.
אנחנו דואגים שילדים שלנו מיישמים את הערכים אלוהים לא רק בבית, לא רק בבית הספר, גם לכולו. לכל אדם שהם פוגשים או כל אישה פוגשת, לחלק איתם את דרך לחיות, להביא אותם שלום, להבריא את העולם.
They call the community Kingdom of Yah, or God on Earth, and about 2,000 live in this compound.
What's my name? I'm coming to meet you.
Community leaders like Prince Emmanuel Ben Yehuda say it's a utopia where a pure form of Judaism is practiced. A vegan diet and polygamy is part of the vision.
What kind of relationship did they have back in the Genesis, back when they had a relationship with the Creator that wasn't labeled by a religious name? There were some principles, there were codes of conduct that men and women adhered to that secured their relationships with each other and also the environment and with the God that created them. So that's what we believe in.
Most Israelis, like former Interior Minister Avraham Porras, dismiss their claims to be recognized as Jews.
Are they Jewish?
No.
Why?
Well, they are not. Because they are not recognized by the rabbis as Jewish. They are, I don't know what their religion is, but it's not actually Jewish.
Tigala ben Israel and Inan ben Shalith were among the first batch of 39 pilgrims to follow Ben Ami to Israel. In 1960s America, they said they were still treated like slaves. Like most here, they were searching for a better life and a way out of their drug and crime-ridden ghettos in Chicago.
If I had stayed in America, to be honest, I would be dead. Because in America I drank and I smoked. And that's not a way to live. If you're drinking and if you're smoking, then you're going to have a short life.
When we found the Hebrew Israelites, we knew that was the answer. Because the goals were to make life better for us. And we could see a future in it for us and for our children.
Shalom, shalom, shalom. Peace to the family. Always like to start off my videos by quoting out of the book of BLaCk, or what we call Genesis. In thy seed, all families of the earth shall be blessed. Knowing that, I say peace to all humanity. The phone lines are open, so if anybody want to call and just voice their opinion about the subject of this live, which is Black Jewish identity versus white Jewish identity. That phone line, that number is 515-604-9716. Access number 674756. So, Black Jewish identity. We were just hearing about people who left Chicago in the late 60s and made Aliyah to the state of Israel. Even to this day, they are not recognized as Jews. Even to this day, they don't have full citizenship in Israel. even though they made Aliyah, even though they practiced the Torah, the white Jews do not accept them as Jews because of their practices. They don't follow the rabbinical order. See, this is what gives you a Jewish identity. This is what gives you the recognition of being a Jew, is practicing the traditions of rabbinical Judaism. So if you keep Shabbat, like we're coming up on Yom Kippur, so we have to, in order to be identified as a Jew, you must keep those holidays on those days that they ordained, according to the rabbis. There's a series of different avenues you have to go down, and you also have to pay money if you're not born a Jew, born from a white Jewish mother. Then you have to actually pay to be recognized as a Jew in certain rabbinical circles. So, with that saying, what is the verses? What is the differences, the comparisons, and the differences between black Jews and white Jews? Me personally, I believe that the identity of black Jews, being that black people truly are trying to find something to claim as their own. We have witnessed a history of things being taken away from black people, being their culture, their language, their creativity, inventions, you can name it. Basically everything was either taken away from us in some form or fashion, or we gave it away in some form or fashion, and at the end of the day, it left us with absolutely nothing. Most of our children grow up not really having an identity to be proud of, unlike some people around them. So you figure if you have a so-called African American child, this child knows nothing of themselves, no more than they are the descendants of slaves who were brought over here from Africa. What part of Africa, what tribe they was taken from, what country they were taken from is a mystery. Any Africans that are among us does not have that information to provide to us, nor is there any type of connection with us and the Africans that immigrate to America. For us to actually find out a little history out of the horse's mouth, being that if we're from Africa, then I think instead of going to a DNA test or a DNA center, you would actually, talk to an African, someone who's from the areas in the countries where our ancestors were supposedly taken from 500 years ago. But unfortunately, when we speak to these Africans, they kind of have the same information we have. We was taken from Africa as slaves and brought over here, and that's kind of the storyline. And of course, the Africans sold their enemy tribes, so that's one aspect, that the people that were sold to the Europeans were actually enemies of these African tribal leaders. So these tribes that were stolen and sold to the Europeans were actually enemies of various tribes that had agreements and had trade with the European colonists in Africa. This is the story that we are getting. This is the story that we are teaching our children about their identity as so-called African Americans. So we had enemy tribes sell us to the Europeans. They put us on ships, brought us to America, made us cultivate this land, and everything that we sowed into the earth, they reaped. Everything we created, they took, they patented, and that's kind of been the history. We were slaves, and then we fought to try to get ourselves out of slavery. We sang songs, kumbaya, things of this nature, Negro spirituals, anything to uplift the spirit of a spiritually dead people. And then a political situation happened. Now this is what we teach our children. A political situation happened where the North wanted to capitalize off of industry. So they wanted to capitalize off of industry. And this is what brought about the Civil War. It really wasn't about slavery as far as it was a sin or it was just a terrible economic tradition in this country to have slaves. It wasn't about that. It wasn't the moral standpoint of slavery. It became the excuse to try to rid slavery, but it wasn't the ultimate reason why the war was even started. The war was started over capitalism. The economy we live in today is because of capitalism. So that war was started over capitalism. And it was the North that wanted to capitalize over the South, being that the South was really succeeded from the Union, meaning that the South, because they had free labor, because they had their own access to trade and things of this nature with Europe and other nations, as far as selling their cotton, tobacco, hemp, and other things, that they really didn't need Washington, D.C. They didn't need the North. And because of this, the North decided that, hey, the South was making a little bit too much money. You have to remember that this country was only broke off into 13 colonies. All right, so that's like basically 13 states. So you figure half, little less than half of the states was not dealing with the other half of the states. So the southern states wasn't dealing with the northern states, and that was a problem. So they had to unite the 13 colonies. And this is after 1776 in the War of Independence, when these white slaves fought back their slave masters, which was the British Crown, and beat them out of this country. Now they had to reestablish this country, and this country was formed under the Freemason fraternity. That's why it became a free country, free of dealing with the British. They was free to do what they wanted to do. And this is when slavery and enslaving the indigenous, this is when it really started. This is when it really went bad in this country for the indigenous people. So the Civil War, capitalism, so-called blacks in this country seen an opportunity to rid themselves of slavery. They abandoned their plantations and went to go fight in the war. Okay, they won. 100 years later, still going through problems, still going through situations, still being lynched. You have white immigrants that were brought over here in the late 1800s, early 1900s, through Ellis Island, which is New York, through Angel Island on the West Coast. And these immigrants were brought in because predominantly this country was predominantly dark, as far as the predominance of the citizens in this country were black, copper colored, okay, brown people. So in order to make it fair in dealing with industry and products and things of this nature, they had to bring in basically a whole nation of Europeans, and this is what happened in the early 1900s. So when they was building the factories in the Industrial Revolution and all these, they brought in these Irish and German and Polish people to work in the factories and cutting out the blacks who were in this country, who were freed from plantation slavery, but now was forced to share crop, meaning they had to still work on the same plantations that they were once slaves on, and now they are enslaved to debt. So this is what was going on into the Great Migration, the Great Black Migration of 1917 through 1970, when you had a lot of blacks leaving the South, going up to the North, going to the West, going to the Midwest, basically California, Chicago, New York, Philadelphia, looking for jobs, looking for work, looking for better housing, looking for a better chance in life, getting away from the Jim Crow lifestyle of the South, and this is what caused millions, 20, 30, 40 million black families to leave the South and to move up to the North, move up to Harlem, move up to Philly, move to Chicago, to the south side of Chicago. And this great migration is what helped spring up certain genres of music and dance and jazz and it was a cultural explosion, because these people were able to have a little more freedom and wasn't so constricted like they was in the South. So they was able to kind of let their wings, let their feathers fly out, show a little color. And this is what was going on. And so the white immigrants did not like the fact that these blacks had came from the South and was becoming prosperous in these areas, in south side of Chicago, in Harlem, in Watts, in Compton. These neighborhoods were black suburban neighborhoods now. And even though job opportunities was still almost non-existent for blacks, because these jobs was given to the whites or whatever, blacks found a way to make money amongst themselves. They started running numbers and things of this nature, which is the basis of what we call the lottery today. But that was a form of work, economic job opportunities that blacks created for themselves. So these are the things that, our children will start to learn. But then at the end of the day, you would see that in these same neighborhoods, white folks will lock these blacks up and shoot them down in the street. And then, we have segregation and Jim Crow, where black people have to be over here, white people have to be over there. So through our children's history, basically, hearing about, if you're a black child, from the beginning of your history, you were sold by an enemy, to an enemy. You was put on ships, taken away from your continent, your land. You were stripped of everything that you was. And now that you're here, you're totally being afflicted from, through the whole history, all you hear is we were slaves. And then after slavery, we had to deal with lynchings and Jim Crow and Ku Klux Klan and people burning crosses in front of our houses. and we can't walk over here, and we can't sit in here, and we're just being totally abused and cut out of society. And this is what our children are hearing that white folks are doing to us. And then once we had leaders rise up and try to help combat the situation that black people was going through in the 60s. Just 100 years after the end of slavery, plantation slavery. And then when we hit 70s, you get the whole drug era and heroin and factories are closing down and leaving the inner cities because black folks have now migrated by the millions into the inner cities. So now the factories and the jobs that were once there for the white immigrants are now leaving. Now society is creating highways and suburbs to move these once criminal immigrants who came from Europe and created their mobs and criminal organizations and exploited one another and extorted one another. Now they created businesses. The government is giving them loans and small business loans and giving them subsidized housing in the suburbs. And these people are creating businesses and unions and things of this nature. And black people are living in the same areas that these white folks once lived. But these areas are now called the ghettos. And then once after the 70s, and we still was fighting, our children to hear about the Black Panthers and how we set up breakfast programs for our children. And they set up sickle cell anemia centers, and they set up all type of healthcare and food pantry type organizations where it was basically black people helping black people, since we didn't have access. There was no welfare in the 70s. There was none of that welfare or anything, or Medicaid or Medicare. It was none of that for black people. So the Black Panthers helped create centers of nurturing and nutrition and healthcare and things of this nature for black people. And the government felt like in the 70s that was a threat to the internal security of America. If black people was to sustain themselves and be independent of the government, that's a threat to the internal security of America. So they eradicated the Black Panthers. And this is what our children will learn about their history in this country as blacks. Then we get into the 80s and you get the crack era. And you get the hip-hop era, and then you get the big gold chains, and everybody want to be a drug dealer. And then you hit the 90s. Everybody want to be a gangster. Everybody want to be a Crip or a Blood or something. In 2000, on and on, up to 2018, where, truly, it's just been, our history has just been terrible. Definitely for a black child that's just coming into the world, don't know nothing about the race that they're being born into, the nation that they're being born into. And for this child to hear the horror stories of being black in America forces you to want to find an identity outside of the narrative of being black in America. And this is why a lot of us are diving into anything that will identify us away from just being black in America. Because the overall story is horrible. It's horrible. And it's sad. It's sad what we have been through and what we are still going through. And it done got so bad that, we destroy each other now. there's more hate for one another than it is for the people that are actually putting us through this madness. And this is what you have to identify with when you call yourself black or African American or Negro or whatever. You have to identify with that horror story. You have, I mean, there has been people that have stood up for us. There's been black organizations that try to create a flag for us. Marcus Garvey was a man that decided that the blacks in America need a flag. They need a symbol to represent them and their history. But black people, we don't accept that flag. We don't even deal with that flag unless it, it's some type of march or something like that. We're throwing up a fist. That's kind of when you see the red, black, and green flag. Outside of that, we haven't really pushed for that flag to be our national identity. But as a black child, black American child, looking around at other people, because we do live in a nation of mixed people, so that there's a variety of different people from many different nations. And everybody has a flag. Everybody has a symbol of their history, heritage, country, land. We're the only people really that don't have that. We don't have a flag to put on the back of our car and say, and have some pride. We don't have a parade for us, and holding up our flag and showing our culture and our beautiful feathers, and we don't have that, so, and what we do have is exploited. We have our music, we have our dance, we have our jazz, we have our culture, our urban culture, and that is exploited by big corporations and companies who have taken the culture and the genre and made it into something horrible when it was something beautiful, So, I mean, to be black American is something that, a person looking from the outside and really wouldn't want to be a part of. And I think this is why a lot of us try to find an identity away from that horror story, Because it really is, it's really a horror story. It's really depressing to be black American. Yeah, I would rather, I understand people that say I'm African because we have learned all this rich, beautiful history about Africa, the first pyramids, and religion came out of Africa, and all these great kings and queens of Africa. Even though Africa is nothing like that today, and haven't been like that for the last 2,000-3,000 years probably, but in our history books, it excites us to even imagine black people in the position that white people are in today. To imagine us as kings and queens and ruling nations is almost like it's almost like a dream, And if they put this in a book and say, hey, you was kings and queens at one time, being that we are nothing of kings and queens, and you do have African kings and queens, you do. You have Africans who have their faces on money, just like, we have the white man face on the dollar bill. You go to Africa, majority of their African currency has the president, the prime minister, the tribal leader, whatever, is on that dollar bill. So, majority of African currency has a black man on it. The only currency you will find in Africa with a white man on it is an American dollar. So you do have kings and queens that still rule in Africa today. You still have tribal leaders that are ruling tribes today in Africa. Unfortunately, look at the condition in Africa. It's not really that good. Definitely when you see millions of Africans running out of Africa to go live with Europeans, to go inhabit European lands, Canada, America, Europe. They even going to China and Japan. Africans are getting out of Africa and trying to go somewhere else. So, that's not a good look, being that Africa is supposedly run by Africans. Colonialism is over. I mean, even in South Africa, they're trying to kick out the whites in South Africa. So, Africa is trying to regain itself, I guess, but the greed, which is really a problem over there, is what's destroying Africa. Shalom, shalom. I thought somebody jumped online. So, I mean, being, a black child and hearing about Africa, yeah, you would want to identify with Africa. You would want to identify with Egypt. Being that, white people, the Romans, the Sicilians, we got to remember that Alexander the Great, Caesar, they all dealt with Lower Egypt. Memphis and all that. So, matter of fact, Alexander the Great conquered Egypt. So did Caesar. So when you see, white people dressed up in Egyptian garbs and they were saying that they were the pharaohs and they were the Egyptians, they was. At one point, they was. So yeah, they probably can decode the hieroglyphs because they were ruling Egypt, and this is why Egypt does not look black today. It looks more Turkish, white, European, Arab-looking people over there. You would not really find a lot of black people over there, even though that's So if you go to Upper Egypt, which is basically Kush, Lower Egypt, Upper Egypt, which is basically Kush, Ethiopia, Sudan. You will find the more darker races of people. But when you go to Upper Egypt, it starts to get lighter. All right? That's because the Romans have conquered Egypt over and over and over again. The Romans, the Greeks. All right? So, remember Cleopatra and Alexandra. Was it Cleopatra? I think Cleopatra and Caesar, they had a child together. They had a relationship or something like that, Cleopatra and Caesar. I believe that's what it was. So we see that, the Egyptians basically sold themselves out. But us, being black in America, and all you hear about is white people holding you down, lynching you, beating you, saying you can't do this, you can't do that, we begging and marching, and prior to that, we was enslaved, and it's just a horrible identity to be a part of. So, we would identify with being African. Yeah, if Africa was where everything started, everything, language, religion, the greatest monuments, pyramids, which, these great pharaohs and gods all came out of, this one little area in Africa called, Egypt, then yeah, we were, even though Egyptians hate the fact that we try to identify with Egypt, but we will try to identify with anything to get away from the identity that we had. And it's understandable. We would, if I could say I'm African, I'm from Africa, my lineage comes from kings and queens, that'll make me feel better about being here in America and the history that, my people have. In my mind, I would justify all that by saying we were kings and queens, 5 million years ago in Africa. And then I would justify my situation today as, oh, well, the white man came and did this, that, and the third. This is why we're not the kings and queens we was. And that would make me feel better about my depressed situation in America as a black individual. So I can understand that. And that's what a lot of us do. Or a lot of us be a part of certain religions. and the religion becomes our identity. So, you know, Christianity becomes an identity. I'm not black, I'm a Christian. So that gives me an identity away from the horrible identity that I was born into. You know, being a Muslim. You know, when Christianity didn't work, when we see white people did not accept us as good, wholesome Christians, and they still bombed our churches, still burnt crosses in front of our houses, still treated us, you know, less than human, even though we were more devout Christians than they was. You know, Christianity didn't, you know, really didn't seem, you know, the way to, you know, a good identity. It wound up being a good force in the black community, I guess. I mean, you have to go to the white people and ask permission to open up a church and to preach in the black community. So, I mean, the church was never really a good force, you know, good representative of the black community. You know, it never has been and never will be. Those that partake in religion get a little ease from the white man, you know, from the system. That's why you don't pay taxes. You sign a 501c3, you don't pay taxes. It's a little ease on you. You know, back in slavery days, the pastor, the preacher was the only black person on the plantation that can read. So that, you know, being that individual can read, and majority of everybody else on the plantation, it was a law that, you know, you were not supposed to read. If you get caught reading, you're a dead person. So someone that can read has, you know, some type of favoritism with the white man. So you would want to listen to this individual. You know, that's like if we see, you know, you figure back on the plantation days, the pastor was like Barack Obama. You know, when we seen Barack Obama get up there on stage at the White House, it was like, yo, you know, that's the man right there. So he out in front making beautiful speeches, and, you know, we just hanging on every word this man says. Even though he's reading off a teleprompter or whatever, you know, his speech, everything was already written for him by the white man standing behind him. But we didn't recognize that. We just seen, you know, it was amazing to see a black man up there on stage in the first place. And then he got a book and he's reading out that book. Oh my God, you know. So that's a step up from being down here picking cotton all day. You know, so it was always that one black person that was always put up, you know, by the white organization for whatever reason they put that individual up there. But it was never to help their people succeed, you know. But at the end of the day, you know, being a Christian gave you Sunday off, basically. So if you was on the plantation 6 days a week from dusk to dawn, you know, I would be a Christian too if I got Sunday off and I ain't have to be out there, you know, picking cotton and getting whipped because I ain't pick enough cotton that day, you know. So I'll be in church clapping and dancing and falling out too, you know. At least I get the day off. I ain't got to be out there on that field. I be in this church. I don't care what he talking about. I don't care if I believe it. If I don't, it makes sense. It don't make sense. I'm not out there on that plantation picking cotton right now. So it sounds good to me. And that's kind of, I believe, where the comfortability in Christianity came from. You know, it was a little ease from a situation where we had no ease, and the only ease that we got was in Christianity. You know, that's the only way you got out the plantation is when it was time to go to church. You know, that's the only time you got some rest, when you was talking about Jesus. So, you know, if white people were Christians, then we felt, hey, you know, if we be good Christians, then maybe they'd give us some ease, give us some rest, And I think that's why we rather identify with Christianity, because this identifying with being black, it means you was a slave, So a Christian is not a slave. A Christian, if you are a servant, you're a servant of Jesus, and white people are Christians, so you identify with Christianity. That gives you a sense of I'm equal with white people in Christ, or whatever. Whatever makes you feel better about your situation. And then, after all them years that, white folks have abused us, being that we were Christians and they didn't care. We was out there singing our gospels and stuff, and they still beat us down and hold us down. So you had a lot of blacks looking at, maybe this Christian thing ain't working for us. Maybe this is not a good identity for us. It's going to give us some ease in our situation. And then next thing you know, you have in the early 60s, late 50s, early 60s, you had a man that came with a new doctrine, a new identity for black people, away from Christianity, because Christianity was really, stained on by a lot of blacks, because definitely in the early 40s and 50s, 60s, this is why we have traditions like Kwanzaa, things of this nature, because you have blacks that felt like Christianity was not for black people, because white people still beat us down and still treated us like second-class, third-class citizens under the banner of Christianity. So, we believed in everything they believed in, thinking that this would give us rest. This would give us some type of ease. We celebrated Christmas and everything. So you had some blacks that decided, hey, maybe we need a culture away from this Christian crap. So this is why we have Kwanzaa, things of this nature. Then, this is why, instead of pledging allegiance to the American flag, you have people like Marcus Garvey create, the diaspora flag, the RBG flag, the red, black, and green flag, but a lot of us did not take that identity because we didn't feel like that would give us some type of favoritism with white folks. At that time, we was looking for favoritism, because we was getting beat down in the 50s and 40s and 60s. So we was really looking for some type of ease, some type of favoritism, some type of compassion from the oppressor. And it got to the point where we got tired of asking, became angry. Then you had, Elijah Muhammad, who was trained by a white man named Farad Muhammad. He came up with this so-called black man's religion, the Nation of Islam. And he taught that Islam is the black man's religion and not Christianity. Christianity is the white man's religion. And you had, thousands, maybe even you had millions of black men who were beat down in front of their women and wives and children, who were depressed and drinking alcohol and using drugs and heroin and things of this nature, because we were just in a bad situation, There's no hope, and this rhetoric of the black man's religion and this, that, and the third, and Islam and Allah, and, cleaning yourself up and looking this way and having pride, it gave the black man and black woman a sense of pride, a sense of identity, a sense of strength. And this is why you had people like Malcolm X and other people, rise up out of that movement, but once it was found that Islam was not the black man's religion, but Islam is truly just, really was the white man's religion, it's the white Arab man's religion, and that was exposed by Malcolm X, because he went to Mecca and actually sat and prayed right next to Muslims who had blonde hair and blue eyes. So it shocked him that, hey, this is not the black man's religion. It's a religion. It's he appreciated the religion itself, but he knew that this was not a black man's religion. So he wanted to do something for black people, and he was trying to create a black nationalist movement before he was murdered. Because he saw that, the black man in America need an identity, needs something away from the horrors, the horrible history that we have in this country. I mean, this is our identity. When you think about black people, I mean, this is why people that come to this country really don't have no respect for us, because when you hear black American, the only thing you equate that to is slavery. We were a slave defeated people. Basically, we're weak people. So anybody that comes here, and even though they're running from their conditions, they're running from their problems in their country, they still look down on us being the slaves of America. And then being born into that identity is depressing. So you will find black people identifying with anything outside of the identity that they was born into. They will identify with being lesbian. They will identify with being gay. If that can give them a step above being black, they will identify with being Muslim. Because supposedly in Islam there is no color barrier. Unlike, the unspoken law of Christianity, where Christianity is really for the white man, given to the black man as a form of submission to the white man. So Islam is supposed to be a colorless religion, even though it's not. But it's supposed to be. And it's supposed to be a religion that's against Christianity. So Islam is really supposed to be a religion against Christianity and Judaism and Jews. So as a black man, knowing that Christians and Jews have afflicted, oppressed, and plagued us in this country, you would identify with a religion that's against, not the religions that were against you, but actually the people, the nations that were against you, which were Jews and white Christians. So if Islam is against Jews and Christians, you would identify with that as a black American, because you're angry at whites and Jews, Christians and Jews, for enslaving us and doing us so horribly in this country. So yeah, you would find a lot of brothers that's into Islam. You would find a lot of sisters that would join Islam, as well. It's a religion of devout submission to God. Not too different from Judaism. Now, blacks have been Jews a lot longer than they've been Muslims as far as their religion. A man named Wentworth Arthur Matthews created the Black Jews, or the Black Hebrews, as an organization. He created that in 1919. This is before Farad Muhammad, Elijah Muhammad, Malcolm X, and Farrakhan. This is before that whole organization was even thought about. You had black Jews. You had black Moors, they were still Jews. The black Moors, they were still Jews in Harlem, all based in Harlem. So you had this big explosion, this big religious cultural explosion that was going on in Harlem, and you had a lot of blacks that were Jews before they were Muslims in this country. And again, back then in 1919, 1920, 1925, the black Jews were not accepted by the Jewish community. Now you got to remember that in 1920, 1925, there was no state of Israel. There was no Holocaust yet. You know, there was no agreement between America and the Rothschilds, and that didn't happen yet. So, you know, matter of fact, the language, the Yiddish language that they speak today was not even spoken back in 1919, 1920. You know, yet those blacks back then was not accepted. And even the blacks that left America, left Chicago in the 70s, 60s, late 60s, early 70s, and made Aliyah to Israel, even to this day. Rest in peace, Ben Ami. He was the leader of that tribe of people who left America, and I think they're about 5, 6, 7,000 strong over there in Israel. They live in the desert in Israel, Dimona, Israel. They got to be about almost 10,000 strong over there. So they multiplied exceedingly over there, but they're still not citizens of Israel, nor are they recognized as Jews. All these years, they've been over there longer than I've been born. Longer than I've been roaming this earth, and they still not recognized. They wasn't recognized before I was born. They ain't gonna be recognized after I'm dead. You know, but why are we holding on to this, you know, identity? What's the difference between the black Jewish identity and the white Jewish identity? In my opinion, because we have such a horrible history in this country as black Americans. We just have a horrible history, not just in this country, because really, truly, you know, a lot of us claim Africa because of all the beautiful stories and you know, and cultures and beginnings of cultures that we hear out of Africa. And we were told that we were taken from Africa. So, you know, we will identify with Africa because Africa has all this great history. And we want to be part of something great. We don't want to be a part of the slave narrative. You know, when you think about slave, you don't think about Slovakia. You think about blacks in America. That's when you think about slavery. You only think about blacks. You don't think about a whole European nation named because they all were slaves. You don't think about, you know, the Christopher Columbus and the Pilgrims and all these people being slaves, and this is why they had to fight, you know, in the War of Independence. We don't think of them as slaves. When you think about slavery, you think about black Americans. So who wants that identity tagged on their back? You know. So when you get into the Bible and you hear about, you know, a people who are going to be enslaved, be treated, you know, horribly, their land was going to be took from them, their language, they're going to be sold and afflicted, and you can identify with that. You know, you can identify with definitely we really don't see no way out of this. You know, it just seems like every decade, every generation, it gets worse. If it's not getting worse in our neighborhood, our mentality is getting worse. You know, the neighborhood might be getting better, but our mentality is getting worse. You know, it's a terrible situation with us. And Christianity, that identity didn't work. Islam, being Muslim, you have a lot of us being a part of that because we feel like the religion itself is almost like an ally against our oppressors, be it Christianity and Judaism. So that's just why a lot of us do join Islam. And, you know, and plus, if, you know, being that we feel like we were Jews, Islam is very close to Judaism. if you know it or not. So, you know, a lot of us join Islam because of that. Because we feel like Islam is like an ally to our cause. They're against the Christians. And, you know, when you think about Christians, you think about white people. As a black individual, when you think about Christians, you think about white people. You know, and when you say I'm a Christian, then you're basically saying I'm like white people. You know. I mean, Jesus is white. That's the only Jesus that we ever known. You know. This is the only Jesus. Let me see if I got one in. This is the only Jesus that we have ever known. You know? That's the only Jesus that we have ever known. I mean, you have, you know, once you came into the 90s and things of this nature, you start seeing depictions of a black Jesus with dreads and things of this nature. And, you know, it was, you know, trying to help us have an identity with Christianity. Because, I mean, if you're going to be a Christian, and this is the image that we grew up on, then, you know, being a Christian is trying to be white. You know, so some of us didn't appreciate this identity right here. You know. It's like, you know, you kind of feel like, okay, a white man gave me the Bible, and a white man told me that a white man is my savior. And the white man is going to save me from the white man that put me into slavery. So the white man that gives me a book and tells me that my savior is a white man. And this white man's going to save me from another white man that's oppressing me. So at the end of the day, it's like, well, you know, it's like, okay, white people are our only saviors, you know. So when you get into a religion where you can, you know, kind of, you know, feel like you can get away from that, you know, you want something to identify you. You want something that you can be a part of and say, hey, this is me. You know, this is me. This is something that I can say is me. You know, and I mean, we claim Africa, but Africa does not claim us. At all. I mean, I haven't seen an African ever claim African Americans. I know, you know, they claim that we came from them, so that gives them some type of superior thinking, even though, you know, everything that was ever created was created in America. But anyway, it's just a point, you know, that we, you know, trying to identify with something. And the black Jew versus the white Jew, the identity, the only difference is that what blacks feel like they're going through, or feel like the Israelite story is, we're still going through it. That's the identity part. You know, as far as we're still going through our so-called Holocaust, versus the white Jew is supposed to be going through the blessing right now. They have the land, they got money, they got, you know, everybody recognizes them, they're known to be Jews. So, you know, they're kind of getting the blessing part, and we're kind of still stuck in the curse a little bit, I guess. And I believe that we identify with Judaism because ultimately we're looking for some type of liberation. We're looking for some ease somewhere. I mean, and I guess our Jewish identity is, I guess it's the same aspect as Christianity, being a black Jew. believing that if you return back to the Torah, then all these problems that we have will go away. We will be saved out of our situation. It's no different than Christianity, and you putting that aspect into Jesus, you know. At any cost, we're looking for salvation. We're trying to identify with something that will give us salvation. That's what we're looking for. Salvation. We're looking for rest. We're looking for ease. We're looking for peace. You know. Who want to keep hearing about us being beat down, being lynched, other people being favored over us? Nobody wants to be a part of it. I don't want to identify with that. I'm ashamed that I brought a child into this world, and that's the identity that I have to give him. There's no other identity that we have in this country other than being oppressed, killing each other, just black. The actual definition of black is what we are. We are black. We are in a disastrous, ruined, gloomy, destructive, wicked situation. We are black by definition, and it's a shame that I have to tell my child that they black. And try to give them some hope in a situation where I don't see no hope. Try to give them, some type of encouragement to succeed in a situation that I didn't even succeed in. I'm trying to tell my child that they can be anything in the world, and I ain't even anything in the world that I can be. And I'm trying to tell them they can do it. And they looking at me like, well, if I can do it, why couldn't you do it? So it's just a situation where I think that our identity versus their identity, it really shouldn't have to be explained. Whatever identity that we take up, because of our condition, because of our history in this country, we shouldn't really have to justify ourselves to any other nation of people. Everybody know our story. But our identity as black Jews should be the same identity as the white Jews. I put it like that because we're looking for a better life, a better lifestyle. We're looking for some type of ease out of our oppression. Versus the white Jews who were actually looking for the takeover, to infiltrate and basically take over. They believe that the world is full of Gentiles that ultimately need to be either enslaved or exterminated. So the whole idea of rabbinical Judaism is to actually take over, infiltrate and take over and enslave all Gentiles, right? So that's kind of the plot of the Jews. It's always been their plot. It's always been their plot. This is why they was kicked out of Europe by Hitler, because they created the first aspect of taking over any nation or country is to control the currency. and trade. Once you control the currency and trade, you basically, excuse the expression, got them by the balls. So these Ashkenazis, if you do not know what an Ashkenazi is, this is what they call themselves. This is the Ashkenazi here. This is what they call themselves, Ashkenazi. Not Edom, Ashkenazis. And they call themselves Ashkenazis. You know, a lot of us call them Edom. I don't know why. Edom is not the white man. But I was looking at something. Let me see. Because I seen something on Facebook, right? A guy had brung up. Let me see if I have it on here. He had brung up something that was in their... Okay, so I see I got to turn this around. All right, so I think they had something in, I think it was the Mishnah, right? To show why they think that they are I had highlighted it yesterday. I think it was in the Mishnah. I'm not sure though. Let me see. Where it talks about, it breaks down in their literature who's who as far as the nations or whatever. So I'm trying to see if it was in the Mishnah. Nah, I don't think it was. Maybe it was in the Midrash. Yeah. It won't show up because I ain't got no internet available on here. That sucks. Alright. Maybe it might show up. Okay, so it ain't gonna show up. That's okay. But it was talking about how basically Ham is the of the dark races and Shem is of the brown races and Japhet is of the white races. That's according to their literature or whatever. So this is why they call themselves Japhet. Even though personally in my research that they are Canaan, but that's in my research. But our identity versus their identity. Their identity is basically to take over. They want to enslave the world. Basically, that's the goal. And you know, subject all the Gentiles to enslavement or persecution and death. That's basically the goal of the Jews. All right, so they start off by taking over the banking system, open up banks, loans, things of this nature. So once everybody put their money in their banks, then you kind of, you control the currency. Once you control the currency, you control the people. You control their products. And then they get into trade. Because if you control the currency is really built off of trade. So you can't control the currency without having your hands all in the trade aspect of it. So this is why, New York City, the World Trade Center, Wall Street, Federal Reserve, Jews all up in there. And then being Jewish, they're supposed to be experts in the law, being that they are a people of the law. So this is why you find many Jews in politics and in the judicial system of America being lawyers and judges and prosecutors and attorneys and really, So So if you get into the law, you get into the banking system, and you get into the trade, basically, you can be 2% of the population, but you run the whole country. Just by infusing yourself in those three aspects of society, which basically runs a nation, a country, which is currency and trade. So this is what they do. So this is kind of their identity. It's not really about the spiritual part. Neither is it about liberation or some type of freedom away from oppression. Because you still have Jews living in France, you still have Jews living in Germany, you have Jews living in America, you have Jews living in Spain, you have Jews living in Africa, you have Jews living in Brazil, you have Jews, white Jews living everywhere. So it's not about, some type of oppression, or they're being oppressed. Or, if anything, they're hated because they're so greedy. And so, nobody likes them because of how they act. The stereotype of surrounding Jews and their uppity attitude. But outside of that, that's the only, and, them thinking they can do what they want to do. Or whatever. So anybody, or whatever. So that's kind of, that's the reason why the world hates Jews for the most part, because it's all about money. They all about money. If you know anything about a Jew, they all about money. Anytime you see them, they on a paper chase. And then the people that they in service with, or they provide a service for, they treat them like crap. Majority of the slumlords are Jews, because they feel like the people that they are housing are Gentiles, Goyim, right? So they don't have to treat them according to the Torah. They don't have to treat them with human respect. They treat them like dogs, animals, So, this is why people don't like the Jews. Because they treat people like animals. They treat people like dogs, like they less than. And that's not the way the Torah is supposed to be, conducted. But they don't follow the Torah. They follow the Talmud. They follow the rabbinical order. So, of course they're not going to keep Torah because they don't keep Torah. But that's not the point. The point is that they are recognized as the Jews and are to be respected as such, and they're given privileges and all this because they're supposed to be the people of God or whatever. So that just shows you how much the system believes in this Bible, or the Bible is being used as a way to trick the world, into some type of enslavement. I don't know. But that's their identity, basically, is to take over the world financially, through trade, and basically, through religion. Because, even Christianity and Islam, at the end of the day, comes out of the Torah. So the Bible was first, the Old Testament was first, and everything else is a remake, is a copy. It's a distortion of the Torah. So the Jews hold that they are the first people, and everybody else comes after them. So, and they're gonna keep this identity because they have, you won't find the average Jew don't, look like this guy here. The average Jew is not wearing this hat, and, the average Jew does not look like this. The average Jew look like a regular white. You shave off this beard, shave those PIs down, take off that hat, look like an average white guy. That's what the average Jew looks like. And that guy can be your landlord. He can be your lawyer. He can be your boss. He can be your supervisor, your manager. He can be the CEO of the company. He can be a lawyer. He can be the judge. He can be a landlord. He can be he can be the guy that runs the property maintenance or whatever settlement you living in. You know, they can be anybody because they done figured out that they have to infiltrate in order to control. And that's what they're doing. So our black Jewish identity. Our Jewish identity should be exactly what we need it to be. An identity to give us some type of rest, some type of ease. I mean, we're calling ourselves Jews, but we're not acting like Jews. Phone line's still open. If anybody want to comment, right here on live with me, Rabbi Salam. That number is 515-604-9716, 674756. But yeah, I mean, our identity should be not too dissimilar from theirs. And the only way that we're going to find any peace, have any peace, is if we do exactly what they did. Infiltrate and take over. It's difficult to do it in a society run by a people whose complexion does not look like yours, basically. White and black. Okay, so we understand that. So, you know, you can't get some black people that can get up in that White House and try to infiltrate and do something. But I mean, we don't had a black president. Now, he wasn't American black. He was foreign black. Or, wait, really, he wasn't even black. He was kind of a mixed race. So I don't know what that is. Black, white, whatever he felt like he wanted to put on paper. If he was black, he could have been black today and white tomorrow. I don't know. You know, those mixed race people was created to confuse the original people or whatever. And that's what he did. He confused us in thinking that he was for us, and he really wasn't. But we do have opportunity to have a little more power than we do. Definitely as black Jews, being that the Jews is an organization. This is not a nation. It's an organization, okay? And this organization does everything for its organization, okay? Whatever it has to do to continue and grow its organization, it will do. If it has to kill people, it would do that. If it has to infiltrate, it would do whatever it has to do to survive. And it looks at everybody else as bread, food, expendable, right? And we have to kind of have that same outlook if we want to. I mean, we had war. You know, it's a struggle. This is what Israel means, to struggle. So, but we are supposed to prevail, right? But we have to sit and we have to really ponder and think. We have to use intelligence and wisdom and knowledge, you know, in order to make this power move, you know. And it has to be a power move because El is in Israel. So you have to make a move with some type of power behind it. You know, you have to make power move. So if we look at how they sustain themselves, okay, the first thing they did was create a banking system, a borrow and loan system. So maybe we need to start that as black Hebrew Israelites. We can start off with opening, you know, our own banks, or at least aligning ourselves with black bankers, black-owned banks, or whatever. And then we just deal with, try to deal with some aspect of trade with other nations. I mean, you have a lot of Africans that are, claiming Judaism and identifying with Judaism. And I think we need open dialogue with those tribes. We also have so-called African Americans that live in the state of Israel and been living there for decades now. So I think us and Black Hebrews in America and the center of the organization being is still in Harlem. I believe that is basically. I think right now then shift from Harlem to Chicago. I think Chicago is like probably the home base of the Black Hebrew Israelites now. But it used to be Harlem. But wherever it is, Harlem, Chicago, California, I think there's some dialogue that need to be made, need to be had, a sit down, and start, creating a banking system. I mean, a lot of these organizations have a 501c tax exemption, so they're recognized as some type of non-profit religious organization. So, we need a banking system to support that organization, that religious organization. We need some type of something. I think our identity is not to take over, to destroy, and enslave. Our takeover and infiltration is more about finding a situation where we can control our destiny and give ourselves peace. Because nobody's going to give us peace, obviously. How many more decades, centuries are we going to go through, with this black identity, So, I mean, we have to find, I think Judaism, and really I think Judaism and Islam can be good religious avenues to open up a sense of sovereignty and independence with Black Americans. I truly believe that. I think, if we can get away from, definitely in Judaism, we can get away from trying to be accepted or recognized by Jews. If we can get away from that part, I think we would be better off if we just recognize ourselves, because I mean, practicing the Torah really doesn't have nothing to do with Judaism. For the most part, it's just principles of peace, principles of conduct. You can be a Christian and keep Torah and call yourself a Christian. Don't call yourself a Jew. I mean, Jesus was supposed to be a Jew, so you can be a Christian and keep Torah. You can be a Muslim and keep Torah, being that Muhammad was a Jew. The first Muslims is mentioned in the books of Kings. And this is before Muhammad and Mecca and that whole situation that created what we call Islam today. So, you can be a Muslim and keep Torah. So, you can, I think those two avenues can open up a door for really some great things to come about with Black Americans. But we have to get away from this wanting to be identified as, The Tanakh teaches us not to boast about yourself, but let other people boast about you. So that goes towards the individual and the collective. We shouldn't care about what they think, how they think, or what they call us. They're going to call us by all type of scornful names. We already know this. but it's what we identify ourselves as. That's, you know, do you think that these white Jews, they know that the world hates them for the most part? And majority of the world do not believe that these people are the real Jews. And they have legitimate arguments against these people, calling them. I mean, you even have white Jews that say that they're not really Jews and go against the Zionists, you know. So, I mean, but that's not the point. You know, the only reason why these Jews were recognized in the first place, let me tell you why they were recognized. Why these Ashkenazis were recognized as Jews in the first place. Because in the event of World War II, Hitler, the whole Holocaust situation, all you got to do is look up how many Jews were working in Washington, how many Jews were in the Supreme Court. Because there were legislations passed and laws passed to go over there, to invade, you know, go over there and liberate these Germans, give them and weaponize these Germans and let them invade Palestine. There were agreements made. At the time, it was the League of Nations. It wasn't the United Nations. America became the single ally of the state of Israel. The state of Israel itself, has no other allies outside of America. America is basically a Jewish country. It's ran by Jews, right? I mean, come on. Look at that Jew guy right there, right? You see this guy? You see this Jew guy, right? So I just look at that guy. And look at this guy. Look at that nose. Now you say that's a Jew nose. He don't look like a Jew to you? If I draw a yarmulke on his head, will he look more Jewish and I put some piats? Let me see something. Let me see if I could make him more Jewish. I'll make him more Jewish for everybody. So y'all can see, you know, that the Jews is running this country. You know, Jews always ran this country. So I'm gonna just, luckily it's not a law to, sit here and write on a dollar bill. You know, because they catch you, disrespecting the flag, you know you can go to jail for that. Because that's a symbol of commerce. That's a symbol of trade. So you can't destroy their symbol of trade. So, you know, they see you, you know, like you can step on the flag. They don't care. You ever notice like the Israelites that be on the corners? They'll sit and step on the flag. They would spit on the flag, but you would never see them actually burn the flag or rip that flag up. You know why? Because they will be in jail. All right, look what I did. You see his piats and stuff? And a little hat. Now tell me that ain't a Jew. Right? You look Jewish now, right? You look like that guy? Alright, I'm bugging out. But anyway, what I'm saying is, this country is always ran by Jews. See that star? That is not a Magen of David, okay? This is the star this is the Rothschild star. And you ever notice it's over the eagle? The eagle is a representation of the indigenous people. All right? The eagle is a representation of the people of Abraham. And these people, you see how they got the 6-pointed star over the eagle. All right? But that just shows you, who runs this country, who's been running this country. And this is why Israel gets, I think, about $8 million a day from America, like tribute or whatever. I think they get a Holocaust check every year. I forgot. I think Obama gave them like a few million when he was in office. Every year he gave them a few million for the Holocaust fund or whatever. But why, you have a whole organization called, I think it's called IPAC or whatever, which is they basically, what they do is they fund politicians. So whoever's running, they will fund your campaign. This is why Trump was saying, all these lobbyists. The lobbyists are Jews. That's who lobbyists are, Jews. Okay? The lobbyists and all these other people who are funding and paying for these candidates, candidacies and things of this nature. So Trump was saying, hey, look, I pay for all my stuff. Ain't no lobbyists, ain't no Jews pay for nothing. I don't owe anything. Because the Jews feel like, hey, they can charge interest on you. It's in the Torah. They feel like everybody's goyim. So you can charge high interest on a goyim, but you can't do it to your own people. You understand what I'm saying? According to the Torah. So they follow that law of business. Because the Torah does have business laws. And those business laws is when, like, if somebody, you make a loan, certain laws about payment, things of this nature, buying real estate, buying property. All these things are within the Torah. So the Ashkenazis definitely deal with that part of the Torah as far as the business aspect of the Torah. So this is why they have a high interest rates, things of this nature. The Federal Reserve is run by Jews. This is why the American government have to ask the Federal Reserve for a loan. Or, and the Federal Reserve say, no, we're not going to give you a loan because your credit is bad with us already. You owe us money. So America asks China, look, we'll let you bring in all your bootleg CDs and stuff if you can, help buy up some of this debt from the Federal Reserve. So China then brought a big portion of America's debt from the Federal Reserve. The Federal Reserve is still charging high interest on whatever America owes them. And who is the Federal Reserve? Who runs it? These guys, Jews. This is why they can print money and just send money to Israel all day long. Because they couldn't do that if they didn't have their own people in politics to advise, infiltrate, and basically get the system to benefit the Ashkenazi. So they schemed their way to the top. And I don't see anything wrong with that. I think that we have to do the same thing, but we have to do it on a level. We can't do it on their level because, for one, we're not white. So it's limits, it's limits. Because we're not white, it's limits in certain doors that can be opened, certain places that we can go. See, a Jew, at the end of the day, he's still white. So he might be discriminated against because he's Jewish, but once he shaves this beard and this mustache and shave these pias and take off that hat, you would not know that you would look like a regular white person. So because he has that ability to look like a regular white person, not like a white Jew, but just a regular white person, then he has the ability to get into doors and infiltrate political systems, entertainment, radio, trade, and bar, all that. He's able to infiltrate. Unlike this man here, because of his copper tone complexion, he is not able to walk indoors. He can shave. He can look real neat, shave this beard down, but he is still not going to have the ability to do what this one can do and walk into the doors that this one can do. Even if he do walk into the door, he won't hold the title. He will. You understand what I'm saying? So what we have to do is really be about each other. Like the Jews do everything for Jews, so we have to do everything for us. So everything that we do, our identity is about survival. And the Black Jewish identity is really supposed to be about peace and trying to find some way to give us some ease out of this oppression. That's really the Black Jewish identity. We're being oppressed. We don't see a way out. We don't see a light at the end of the tunnel. We really don't. Like, we really don't. And the only hope that we have is that God is going to come back. God, Jesus, either one of them, Yahuwah, Yahweh, Yahweh, Jesus, Jesus, somebody is going to bring us out of this situation. Like, that's the hope. That's the hope. Allah, Yahweh, Jesus, Yahuwah, Yahweh, somebody come get us out of this. It's like, how long are we going to keep going through this? Like, are we going to ever see salvation? So it's like, we're trying to find salvation in a book, in a man, in a religion, in something. We're just trying to find a way out. That's really what we're doing. We're trying to find a way out. And if Christianity is the way out, then we're going to go that route. If Islam is the way out, then we're going to go that route. If Judaism is the way out, then that's the route we're going to go. If selling drugs is the way out, then that's the way we're going to go. If being gay is the way out, if that's going to give us some ease in our life, that's going to give us get some doors open, then that's the way we're going to go. Whatever we have to do to not struggle so hard every single day. That's what we're going to be a part of. That's what we're going to do. That's what we're going to gravitate to. Because we really don't want to go through this every day. We don't want to see this. We don't want to, birth children into this pain, into this horror story of being black in America. It's very disturbing to the individual looking in the mirror. And all you see is just negative. All you see is black. That's all you see. Slavery, Jim Crow, incarceration, police brutality, black on black crime, welfare, economic castration, domestic violence, lack of respect. I mean, you just no love. It just when you look in the mirror, that's just the rundown. It's like credits. That's everything that we going through, and it's like this is who you are. This is what you're a part of. You can't escape it. And sometimes some of us we try to get another race, a woman, a man, and hopefully we can have a mixed child that can't identify with black, can't identify with white. They're their own entity. They identify with what they want to identify. And that, at least that gives them a little gray area to work with. They're not really black. They're not really white. It's almost as if they're off the grid. They above prejudice. It depends. It depends on the individual. If you're around black people, they might be prejudiced against you because you light skinned or you mixed. you're around white people, they might be prejudiced against you because you're not all white. So it depends. You might grab, you might be a mixed race individual that came out a little dark. So, you're not gonna be accepted by white people. But you're around black people, you're gonna feel like you're a little different from them because your father was white. But if you come out mixed race and you look a little white, then you can play around with the blacks because you can show them your mother. My mama's black. And then black people will accept you to be black because we accept anybody. That's just what we do. Unfortunately, but that's what we do. So we're going to accept you because we feel like, hey, look, the more white-looking blacks it is, maybe white people will have a little kindness, for us because, we got people in our family that look just like them. Man, white people don't care about that crap. But that's just the mentality we have because we're looking for some type of peace somewhere. But this is why we have mixed race children and, or get with mixed race or get with another race of person because we're really trying to get away from the stereotype of being black in America. And I believe that the black Jewish identity should be Jewish, but not as far as the religion, Judaism, and trying to follow the traditions and the culture of the Jews. That's not really helping our Shabbat. Keeping Shabbat every Saturday is not helping our situation. Keeping Yom Kippur and all these different holidays, it's not really helping our situation, nor is it accepted by white Jews. So, we can keep it. We can do it. But I haven't seen any salvation come from God because we're doing it, nor have I seen us recognized by the white Jews for doing it. So, that bears the question, why the hell are we still doing it? Why are we doing it like that? Why are we doing it the way they doing it? If they're not accepting us by doing it anyway, nor are we getting salvation from God, we ain't getting no ease from God for doing it, so why are we still doing it? So, we're looking for acceptance. That's really what it is. We're crying out, please accept us. We'll be a part of whatever you're a part of as long as you will accept us and stop treating us like animals and stop treating us like we don't exist or we less than you. And that's towards white people across the board. And not just white people. Now, you have other minorities that we're trying to get to accept us as well. So it's really a bad situation that we're in as black people in America, and we're really looking for this greater acceptance from everybody because we've been beat down in our history. That's all we know about ourselves is oppression. That's all we know. That's all we heard. That's all we see about ourselves, being beat down by white people. White people doing this to us. White people doing that to us, So, I wouldn't want to identify with that. I wouldn't. Yeah, I'm black. Ain't nothing to be proud, black and proud. Well, ain't nothing to be proud about when you look at our history. And then, when we fought white people ain't beating us down like they used to every day. We beating each other down. So now that's another stain on us. Now, white people don't step back and say, okay, look, now they might systematically still oppress us and afflict us on a system level, but physically, like right in our face, no, that's not going on. So because white people aren't right next door, saying, nigga, get out my neighborhood, nigga, go back to Africa, throwing bottles at you and, burning crosses in front of your house, because we're not going through that immediately. Well, in some places in America, they're still going through that. But, for the most part, The narrative is that we're not going through that anymore. So being that we're not going through that, being that we got all this affirmative action, equal opportunity employment, and we're able to drive up into white neighborhoods and stuff like that, and go shopping in their malls and sit in their movie theaters and enjoy a nice meal in their restaurants, and if we got enough money, we can actually afford to live in their neighborhoods. So it's like, now that all that has happened, what's the problem? Like, you know, and this is why you have other nations of people looking at us like, you know, you keep talking about white people this, white people that, white people that, but, you know, when you kind of look at the situation, I don't see white people beating you down. I don't see it. I don't see it. You know, it seems like y'all keep killing each other. I think it was a part on Tupac song when he said, they tell me it's the white man, not Shafir, but it's my own kind doing all the killing here. And that's so true. I listened to that earlier. But that's so true. Big ups to Tupac. Hip-hop revolutionary. He's really going to do something. You know, he's really trying to do some one nation thing, you know. We'll wind up getting popped. You know, it's people like that we don't protect. We protect people like Capernaum, you know, that took a knee at a football game. I mean, which is ridiculous, because at the end of the day, you know, you don't pledge allegiance to the flag, but you still spend the money. You know, everybody I don't want to deal with the football. I ain't dealing with that. I ain't dealing, you know, forget them. They don't want to respect black people. I'm taking a knee. I ain't pledging allegiance to no flag. And, okay, but you still spend their money. It's not like you say, okay, I'm succeeding from America totally. Like, I ain't dealing with America at all. Like, totally done with America. Because as long as you spend that money, this is the representation of the flag. All right? This is what the flag is built out of. So you can take a knee to the flag, but as long as you spend this dollar, as long as you spend this, you know, then, you know, look, we got all the 13 colonies up here too. New York, I didn't even notice. Virginia, Hampshire, Carolina, Maryland, Massachusetts, Georgia, Pennsylvania, 13 colonies. But anyway, as long as you spend this money, as long as he's busting up a check, I'm pretty sure he's still paying his rent. I'm pretty sure. He's still paying his car note, his cell phone bill. So, I mean, if you really want to take a knee, then take a knee and stop spending this. Because ultimately, this is what makes America great. This dollar. Ain't that flag. That flag don't make America great. This dollar is what makes America great. But if he wasn't an agent for black, he's an agent, so black culture is not black culture anymore. Black, or any type of Black Lives Matter, Black Revolutionary, anything, best to believe it's set up by the government, all right? Best to believe that, because Beyonce is not going to do a Black Panther halftime show at the NFL, and that's not a problem, but Capernaum takes a knee, and that's a situation. You see what I'm saying? Do you see it? So, it's all a setup. you know, culture vultures, you know. And before they allow us to start the movement, they will start the movement for us so they can, direct the path that we're going. They don't want another 60s, 70s era. You have to remember, look what the 60s and 70s did. The 60s and 70s created a situation where we are now going to their schools. We are now living in their neighborhoods. We are working at their jobs and their If they wanted us to live next to them and their property value goes down, their equity value in their house starts to deteriorate once we move into the neighborhood. If they wanted that, if they wanted to sit next to us in the classroom, then they wouldn't establish legislations like Jim Crow, segregation. So if they wanted to be next to us, then they would have been next to us. They didn't want to be next to us, and it's not right that we forced our way into their neighborhoods, into their schools, into their workplaces. No, it's not right. Because now we haven't, like right now, it's the reverse effect. What they call gentrification. Meaning that these urban neighborhoods that were predominantly so-called African Americans for the last 40 years, 50 years, ever since we left the South, our grandparents and great-grandparents left the South, we moved into these urban neighborhoods and called it home for the last 40, 50 years, 60 years. Now we're starting to see white folks come into these decrepit neighborhoods, these neighborhoods that we didn't care about, we didn't fix up. For whatever reason, there was enough drug dealers that made enough money they could have brought the block. It's no excuse. I mean, how you think the Italians became the bosses of the construction industry? You think they just got a loan from the bank? No, they sold drugs and they took that money and created businesses and created legitimate companies. All right? What you think? The Jewish mafia, which was one of the most ruthless mafias out here, called Murder Inc. Murder Incorporated. I call it Murder Inc. Ja Rule. But Murder Incorporated was a Jewish mafia. All they did was murder for hire. Dutch shows. When you ever seen the movie Hoodlums, talk about the Dutches, and they was going to war with the black queen who was running the numbers in Harlem, right? The Dutch, he was a Jew, okay. So there's a lot of Jewish mafia, but that's how they started. They came to this country with nothing. There was no welfare and stuff like that for these people. When they came over here through Ellis Island in the 20s and the 30s and the 40s, there was no welfare. There was none of that. So what did they do? They did the same thing black people do. They went out there, they stole, they extorted people, they sold drugs, they sold unlicensed liquor. This is back in Prohibition and things of this nature. So, they had little sleazy clubs and things of this nature. The Italians had it, the Jews had it, the Irish gangs, they had it. So these people that came over here from Europe, from Ireland, from Germany, and things of this nature, they created mafias and gangs and stuff. I mean, in the 30s and the 20s and 10s, 20s and 30s and 40s, these white immigrant gangs was the problem. Well, black people wasn't a problem. So you got like Bonnie and Clyde and what's it? Tommy Gunn. What was the other guy? I mean, it's a whole list of them old 20s and 30s mafias and crime figures. Italian mafias and stuff like that. But they were all immigrants that came over here. Their parents came over here, and the kids became criminals. And then they took a lot of that money and created businesses, and these businesses are corporations today. So they still criminals. They're still mafiosos. The Jewish mob is still alive and well. The Italian mob, the Irish mob. But they don't look criminal today. They legitimized their criminality. Their criminal businesses, they made legitimate. Or at least made look legitimate. They wound up getting their people into the political, because politics is very corrupt. So if you want to be, a criminal and you want to keep your criminal enterprise going, then you need to get into the most corrupt aspect of this country, and it's politics. And while you in politics, you need to go into another more corrupt organization to help the political organization be corrupt, and that's the law. So, they looked at how America is ran, and then they capitalized, on this corruption. We just complain about the corruption and don't capitalize off of it. So these white mafias became, legitimate corporations and businesses and things of this nature, and they created unions and things of this nature to make sure that their people have a job. So when the Irishmen get off the boat from Ireland, after being beat down and oppressed by the English, he come over here to America and is able to get a job, and now he can oppress black people. Ain't life great, Somebody got to be on the bottom. Somebody has to be on the bottom. You have to stand on something. Somebody got to be the foundation stone. So we just don't want to be, we're in a situation where we just don't want to be on the bottom no more. We've been on the bottom all this time. It's time for somebody else to be on the bottom. And when you really look at the Torah, that's all it's talking about is a shift. We on the bottom. They on the top. We're just waiting for the shift. We just want the shift change. We just want to be on top and they on the bottom for a little while. So we got to remember, blacks was on top. We get a little piece of that history entitled The Dark Ages. So a lot of us look at the Dark Ages as, these people, they was in caves. No, that wasn't the Dark Ages. It was in caves, yeah, but not all of them. Yeah. You had to really, really go up into Europe if you want. Europe, it wasn't civilized, is what we think civilization is, but Europe wasn't cave-like neither. It was barbaric, yes, but cavemen and stuff like, you had barbarism and, you might have thought they should have lived in caves, but they might have acted like they came out of caves, but they wasn't actually living in caves in Europe for thousands of years. They kind of came out of that a little bit with the Moors, actually. And the Moors were blacks from the Sahara Desert. And these blacks went up into Europe and conquered Europe for between 700 and 1,000 plus years. So those years were the Dark Ages, meaning that the dark people were controlling Europe and basically the world. Dark people controlled the world. So once the event of the 1400s came in, Queen Isabella and King Ferdinand they just had enough of that black people running crap. So, because they was on the bottom. Rome then fell, right? So Rome had already fell, and Christianity is now in the hands of the King and Queen of England. The British is basically taking over Christianity. You still had the Pope and stuff. They still held it, but it was really the British that was circulating the religion. Because Rome was going through their political problems and stuff like that. So, Rome fell. So he just had a lot of things going on, but when white people had enough of black people ruling them in Europe, they really took hold of Christianity, and Christianity was the white man's religion. Yes. And they made who they call Muslims, they were Jewish Muslim Moors. You can check that out in, let me see here. Let me see if I have it up here. It's called Balad al-Sudan, if you ever want to check it out. It tells you in pieces. Here we go. Let me see if I can get a nice clear picture here. Okay, so it's Balad al-Sudan. You can see that real good. Balad al-Sudan. Alright, so if you ever want to check that out, these are the Jews of the Sahara Desert. Okay? And these people are basically who they can call the Moors. These were the Moors that went up into Europe and Portugal, Spain, and conquered it or whatever. So they called them Moors or medieval Muslims. And, you know, after 1492, they started to kick these blacks out. Either you convert to Christianity or you die or you get out at a certain time. So that was what was going on. They was kicking them out of Rome, Sicily, Italy, Spain, Portugal, Lisbon, right? And also, they start to send out their debutaries, their slaves, to start conquering new lands. And the Moors, being that they were Jews, Israelites, they told them, you know, some of them converted. They converted to Christianity to save their life. Just like Josephus, when the Jews were going to war with the Romans, or the Greeks. I mean, they fought hard, but there was some that were conquered. And I mean, once you're in prison, you don't want to die, you know. So you figure, hey, you know, they say, look, you know, you tell us a little bit about what's going on with your people, and we keep you alive. You know, they call it snitching today. So Josephus was basically a snitch. He snitched. You know, he was a snitch for the Romans. He was captured. He was fighting against the Romans with the Jews. He was captured, and he became a snitch. And you know, he wrote a lot on what was going on, but you know, you can't really take everything that Josephus say credible, because he was a snitch. You know, so of course he's not going to put the Jews in a good light if he's working for the opposition or whatever. But at any cost, that just shows you where, you know, there has been people that has been Jews or Muslims that been conquered or converted or snitched over. So you had certain Moors, Muslim Jews, that converted to Christianity. And hey, if you're going to convert to Christianity, then you need to give up some information. And they gave up the information about this land where there were some people, their family members, their long distance cousins, relatives, were a peaceful people, a thankful people that were living on the other side of the world. And they had a great culture, and they were, you know, it would be easy to capitalize on these people because, you know, they're peaceful people. And that's what happened. You know, they thought coming over here it would be a little easier to take over. They played nice at first, you know, pilgrims and Thanksgiving. You know the whole story, right? November about to come up anyway. We about to celebrate Thanksgiving. I celebrate Thanksgiving for the simple fact that I'm a Jew, and Judah means to give thanks or thanksgiving. Secondly, my family history comes from this country, so you know, I'm tribal American by nature. As far as my family oral history, now I learned that I was from Africa in school, but when I asked my family, I've learned that we are indigenous to this country. So depends on who you want, you know, what aspect of the education I want to kind of take hold of. I want to take hold of the textbook. I want to take hold of what actually came out of my, I asked my elders, what came out of my elders' mouth through their experience. You know, sometimes I'd rather take that over a textbook any day. So, you know, now that we're in a situation, you know, where we really have to do better, you know. I mean, at the end of the day, our whole history, if we're Jews, if we're not, whatever, our history stands for itself. Our situation stands for itself. Now, if that connects to some type of Jewish Israelite identity, that's fine and well. But what are we doing about it? I mean, just identifying as Jews doesn't give you some type of superiority over, you know, anybody else. I mean, you might say, oh, we God's chosen people, but it doesn't look like it because, you know, God favors his people. So if we're not being favored, if we're not receiving the blessing, then we can't be God's chosen people. Even according to the The Tanakh says that. He says, you know, once he redeems us and brings us to a place of peace, then he will be our God, and then we will be his people. So as long as we're in this struggle, we're not really God's people because, you know, as it says in Leviticus chapter 26, he's being an enemy over us. He's walking contrary to us. He's not over us for our peace. He's over us for our hurt right now. So we're not these chosen people that we're claiming to be because we don't have the blessing. So if anybody is the chosen people, it's these people because they have the blessing. But why do they have the blessing? And I like to, sometimes I use a New Testament quote, but faith without works is dead. Truly, we have the faith in salvation, but we're not putting in the work to actually manifest that salvation, you know. And that's the difference between the identity of the Jews versus, you know, the white Jews versus the identity of black Jews, is that we might have more faith than the white Jew, but we don't have the aspirations of work. We're not willing to put in the work of our faith. They're willing to put in the work of their faith. The majority of white people, as much as we say they are godless and soulless people, but when they believe in something, they put their best foot forward and do whatever they have to do to make that vision a reality. And you have to give them an applause for that. They came out of a situation in Europe where they was on the bottom. Just like us, we on the bottom. And they had invaders come from Africa, come up into Europe, invade their country, and rule over them for over 700 years. I'm pretty sure they didn't take that lightly, obviously. Yeah, they had to deal with that oppression, that affliction of black people ruling over them. And we look at the Moorish pictures, and we could tell that the Moors were sleeping with, you know, they had brothels, and every time you see the Moorish pictures, there's always some white woman in the corner somewhere, naked, draped on the side, and he's sitting there with a tambourine or something, sitting on some pillows. You know, I think the Moors went up there for the white women, to be honest with you. And this is why, you know, if you look up Moor, you would see more white Moors, more mixed race Moors. Where do you think Sicilians come from? Sicilians come from a mixed race of Moors and Europeans. Because of this infatuation black men have with white women. And true, it is a deep infatuation. I mean, seriously, like, how many black men were killed in this country just for trying to, you know, get close to a white woman? Even today, a black man get money, what do? Get him a white, because a white woman is like almost like the symbol of I don't know. I made it. You know, I'm the man. I got a white chick on my side, you know. So, I mean, that's always the success of the opposite, is to control the opposite's woman. So, I mean, they did it with the black woman. So, if black people were conquering a white nation, then why wouldn't they conquer, you know, what created that nation, which is the woman? So, you know, it's just an art of war. You know, it's nothing too crazy. It's just the art of war. You know, so we really don't understand the art of war as a people. We don't think we're at war. We just think, you know, they just don't like us. No, we're at war. We're at war and been at war, you know. But, you know, you got to respect people, definitely nations of people that believe in themselves and believe in their aspirations and are willing to do whatever it takes, even if that means sacrificing themselves and their children to accomplish the goal. You think World War I and them drafting? Remind you, the army was still segregated. World War I, World War II, you know. So a lot of those, even though they sent the black units out first to go in there, you know, and clear a path for the white soldiers, but at any cost, everybody died. Everybody got shot. Everybody was a victim of war. World War I, World War II. So they were sending, you know, you had a lot of white men out there that died in action, you know, fighting for this country. And it wasn't voluntary. They were drafted. They had to go against their will to fight for their country. And a majority of them their parents were immigrants who came over here in the 20s, late 1800s. But now the government is saying, hey, look, we done gave you subsidized housing, we done gave you this, gave you that. Well, your children got to fight. Ain't nothing free here. You know, so, and these white, they fought. So, but the government had a vision. The government wanted America to be the superpower. And the only way you can be the superpower, you gotta cheat. You gotta knock everybody else out the box. And that's what they did. They bombed everybody. They dropped bombs on Hiroshima, Japan, China was all messed up. They bombed Russia, all that. Europe, they just tore Europe to pieces. They went over there to the Middle East, took them out, and whatever they ain't finished, they continued through the 90s, 2000, they still over there today. So this is how in the 60s and the 70s and the 80s, America was the greatest country in the world. Because they bombed everybody. But they sent their children out there in the front lines to die. Because they had a vision of superiority. The Jews, you think that Holocaust wasn't set up already? Come on. None of that happened. That it just wasn't, you know, just happenstance. That you know, Hitler just woke up one day and just said, even though he was half Jew himself, just said, I don't like the Jews. I don't like retarded people. I don't like short people. I don't like black people. Let's kill them all. And the Aryan nation is pure race, and this, that, and the third. He just ain't wake up one day and had that thought, and then all of a sudden the Pope of that day come knock on his door and ordain him to kill everybody he felt like he did. That just didn't happen like that, you know. He learned his torture strategies from America, from the eugenics society, Planned Parenthood, and how the whites tortured blacks. That's where he got his whole Holocaust concentration camp idea. He got it from America and how they treated the blacks in America. He said, that's a good idea. I'm going to do that to them over here. You know, so the idea of the Holocaust came from the situation that was going on with the blacks in America. But prior to Hitler's deranged rant and victimization of not just ethnic German Jews, but other people as well. Prior to that, the Jews were doing pretty good in Europe. They owned banks and stuff. They had their own communities and everything. You know, basically how it is in America. I mean, how it is in wherever Jews are, basically they live the same way. And they was living the same way in Europe, except they wasn't speaking what we call Hebrew today, is speaking German or Yiddish. But Yiddish was around. Yeah, okay, yeah. Because World War II was what, 1930, something like that? But anyway, the point is that the Rothschilds, now that the little Star of David or whatever, they were white people, okay? So it's very hard to differentiate a white person from another white person when all y'all grew up together in the same village, town, state, country, all right? So, you know, all a white person had to do that was a Jew is say, I'm not a Jew. Just like I was saying, all this Jew guy had to do is just shave his beard off, shave his piats, take off that hat, and you wouldn't know him from a regular white Christian guy from a Jew. You wouldn't know. So it's the same thing in Europe at that time. They didn't know. So they put a star, a 6-pointed star that had Jude on it to show that they were Jews. It was a yellow star. That's how they identified. They had to sew that on their clothing to show that they were Jews. Because they really didn't know. That just shows you that, you know, the Census Bureau in that time really didn't see a difference between German and Jews. They were all Germans. You know, it was just a religious identity. It wasn't an ethnic or national, you know, it wasn't a national or ethnic identity. It really was a religious identity that became an ethnic identity because they were singled out. They were singled out by Hitler as an ethnic group, almost. Even though they was a religious group, they were Germans. I mean, because if they was an ethnically a different people, then it was no need to identify them with a yellow star, a yellow patch on their clothing to know who was, because they all spoke German. You know, so it was a religious kind of cleansing kind of thing. You know, they was being persecuted because of their religious traditions, I guess. Basically, of we better than you, and you know, everybody is going to be subservient to us at some point, and they was basically taking over Europe, you know, Germany through the banking system. This is why Hitler wanted them out of there. You know, same thing they done to America, the same thing they would have done to Europe. And this is why they got them out of there. And this is why they plague them today still. Europe still don't like the Jews. They still persecute Jews in Europe today, but you don't see, you know. But if they're in France and they're being persecuted and treated bad and, you know, attacked in France and in Germany and Poland and all these other places, you know, but, you know, they have a whole state that they can just move to. They make a Leah too and be accepted and all that and get settlement housing. They got welfare system over there to help, you know, fit them into the culture of the state of Israel, whatever. So, you know, they really don't have to be in these places. They don't have to be in Poland where they're being attacked for being Jewish. They don't have to be in France where they're being attacked for being Jewish. They don't have to be, you know, in Brooklyn where where people are defacing their synagogues and kicking over their tombstones and stuff like that. They don't have to live like that. They can live in Israel where they can attack other people. You see how that whole bottom top thing works, you know? So, you know, they wasn't attacked in the so-called Holocaust because there was an ethnic group. It was a religious group, and because they were singled out, they became an ethnic group. All right, so they were all Germans. This is why they had to wear the star. So the star showed who was a Jew and who wasn't a Jew. So a Jew was somebody that's is a religious. There was religious Jews, but they were ethnic Germans. Okay. So being that they were singled out based on their religious views, not their ethnicity, not them being German, but them being Jews. So because they were singled out in Europe, because they were Jews, they turned that into an ethnicity. All right. So when they did, when the Rothschilds set up the whole situation with them going into the so-called land of Israel, when they set that up with the League of Nations, which is today the United Nations, and America said, hey, look, we got, all the other League of Nations said, look, these people ain't Jews. Who is these people? Like, why are we going to war for these? No, what? I'm not changing no legislation. I'm not changing the British mandate for these people. These are people of God. Get out of here. They know they not. America, like, look, these are people of God. We got their back 100%. We're going to give them all the military weapons and everything they need. And being that Britain is an ally of America, and that's when they, once after the event happened of 1948, this is when they came up with the United Nations. So, and this is after World War II and after the Cold War ended, and all, they made all these treaties and stuff, between the nations. Not before the Rothschilds got what I'm saying is that it was a setup. It was all a setup. It was all a setup by the Jews to get themselves in the position of power. They was trying to do it when they was in Germany, but Hitler was not having it. So they had to find a place where they can maintain their position of power without an outside nation coming and attacking them for their ways. So they went to Palestine, being that the British already had that, and these people, and the Palestinians, who are really Edomites, couldn't defend themselves against the American-made weaponry that was given to the Germans, who are now Israelis. And they went in there and massacred these people, man. Massacred these people. It only took them 3 days to take over. These people ain't even they were throwing rocks. These guys had machine guns and tanks, and the Palestinians is throwing rocks and bottles, and somebody might have had a little zip gun, a little handgun. That's why it only took them 3 days to take the whole country. 3 days. Wiped them out. And they try to attribute that to some type of biblical prophecy, biblical story, whatever. It's cute, but they have to legitimize that they're Jews and this is the Holy Land, even though if you read Exodus chapter 15, we understand that the land of Palestine is actually the land of Edom. You just read Exodus chapter 15, but this is why I'm saying they don't follow Torah. It's not about the spiritual, religious part. It's never been about that. It's about the physical takeover part. You use the spiritual to legitimize the physical. You understand what I'm saying? So we do the same thing, but we do it in a backwards form. We do it in a negative. They do it in a positive. They use the religious to elevate their physical standpoint, to elevate their reality to a more positive state. They use the religion, to elevate them in a more positive, blissful state. We, on the other hand, versus them, we use the spiritual aspect of the book, but we use it in a negative. So we use it to show, the affliction and oppression of our physical state. So we use the spiritual to justify our spiritual state. So if we're, basically we only harp on the curses. We only talk about the curses. So we only get cursed. Our situation would not get no better because we're not involved, I guess, in the better thought pattern. The Jews, they went through their Holocaust. That was enough. They said, okay, we went through our curse. Now it's time for the blessing, baby. So they did a couple years of going through a couple curses. Yeah, they went to some camps. They got gassed and killed and all this. And, yeah, they got pictures. And it was so, never forget the Holocaust. And, but once they got out of that situation, they planned on never to get back in that situation. They did everything they had to do to stay out of that situation. Whoever they had to infiltrate, if they had to cut off their piats, if they had to act like Christians, whatever they had to do to get where they at today, that's what they did. We, black Jews, we still harp on the curse. Oh, we cursed. Oh, we cursed. It's like, okay, when is the blessing gonna come? You keep saying we cursed. Okay, I get it. Duh. I ain't have to know about the Bible to know that we cursed. I see the situation going on I ain't need the Bible to tell me that. I need the Bible to tell me how to come up out of this situation. That's what we need. They use the Bible to figure out how to come out the situation. Even though they wasn't in a bad situation in the first part. They wound up going into a bad situation because of their greed. Their want of all things. Trying to take over everything. So, you had people saying, you ain't coming in this country taking over. And got them up out of there. So that was their Holocaust, where they was basically kicked out of their own land. And but some council decided, look, Rothschilds, and they decided, look, we're going to be in power, and we need, and what we need to do, if America's our ally, then we're going to use America to take over the world. And that's what they're doing. We don't do that. We looking for somebody to take the burden out of our hand. And we're just looking for somebody to account for our problem. Somebody to take the burden and put it on their back. So, that's what we're looking for. We're looking for salvation outside of ourselves. And if you ever noticed, even when we talk about white Jews, they created salvation for themselves. They came over here with nothing, and they made something out of nothing. They put their peoples in political place, in political situations where they can help one another. Oh, they're not worried about their rent going up because they own the building. They're not worrying about bad food coming to their neighborhoods because they only eat off a certain way, and they have their own food. They have their own food dispensaries and so they made it to where they're not going to be oppressed by another people. They're not looking for. They ain't even built a temple over there in Israel. They ain't even looking for a Messiah. They are the Messiahs. For God's sakes, there's stars on the dollar bill. There's nothing else to be said. They done put themselves in a position where they ain't never gonna be oppressed. And if they are, if someone has the audacity to speak against them, oh, you're being anti-Semitic. They done came up with a word that's worse than nigger. Me personally, I don't think nigga is. Me personally, I'd rather be called a nigga than be called my name. I'd rather be called a nigga than be called black because I know where the origins of nigga come from. It's a Greek word. It means black anointed. That's what it means. A black Christian, a black anointed one. You know, so you call me a nigga, thank you. I'm proud to be a nigga. You know, I don't see it derogatory at all. You know. Some people do. They'd rather be black. They'd rather be absent of light, gloomy, or ruin. You know, that's what black is. But a nigga, sure, it's Latin. It means, supposed to mean black. But the origin goes back to Greek, which that's where Latin comes from, Greek. And the Greek origin, it means anointed. So the first Christians were niggers. All right. So anyway, the point is that these people ain't waiting. They gonna make sure that the promised land will be established. You know, the temple of Solomon was not built by itself. David got all the materials for the temple. And Solomon built the temple. And once the temple was built, it was established. But it had to be built. The foundation, the ground, you know, somebody had to break ground. Somebody had to put the first cornerstone. Somebody had to put in this work to build this temple, to build this house. Even the second temple. Once King Cyrus, you know, relieved the Jews from their oppression out of Babylon, what they had to do, the temple wasn't built when they got there. It just didn't miraculously just come from the sky. The Most High said, here's my temple, children. Worship me with sacrifice and praise. Oh, ain't none of that gonna happen. They went there, it was still a pile of rubble from when the last temple was destroyed. And they had to take that rubble, had to clear that stuff up, and they had to rebuild the second temple. They had to put in that work. So, I mean, if, like Jesus says, faith without works is dead. And if black people ain't got nothing else, they got a whole lot of faith, but don't want to put in the work, or don't want to continue to put in the work. If you Israel, then you got to understand that your whole identity is struggle. Brothers and sisters, that's what Israel means, to struggle. That's what it means, to struggle. And if you look at the story of Israel, they have went through struggle from day one. From Abraham and his brother being murdered or killed in Ur of the Chaldees, and they had to make Hajj to Assyria and live in Haran, and then he being called out and going to Canaan, and then had to go into Egypt and lie and say he didn't lie. His wife was his sister, but still he had to go through that situation and come out, and then, you know, he wasn't sure if he was able to have children, and, you know, and he was an old man, and then, you know, he had to kick out his first child and wife, you know. So he had to go through that struggle, and then Isaac and his wife had to go through the struggle between, you know, Jacob and Esau kind of doing what he wanted to do, and Jacob being sneaky, lying around the house, you know. And Jacob had to go through his struggle with his sons and his wives and trying to survive and go through famine, and then they got a little relief when they went to Egypt for a little while, but then he could struggle again, and somebody came and enslaved, the Hebrews and the Egyptians and put them to hard bondage and labor, and then they had to go through that. And then Moses came out of all of that, and they had to go through the struggle of battling with Egypt, and then they left Egypt and was scared to go into Canaan, and they had to struggle through the wilderness for 40 years, and so it's been. And then even when they went into the land, they just didn't walk up in the land. They had to break down the wall of Jericho. It was still a wall there. After all that struggle, they wound up hitting a wall. And they had to go around that wall 7 times, blowing trumpets and making all this noise till the wall go down. Then they went to Canaan. And even when they went into Canaan, it was problems. And it continued to be, even when Joshua died, it was problems. Soon you go into 1 Kings, 2 Kings, oh man, they was off the chain. So it's always been a struggle. And then you go further to David, Saul, David, Solomon. Look at the problems they had. Look at the problems David had. Look at the problems Saul had. Look at the problems Solomon had. Then the nation split. The whole nation split. 11 tribes just said, we ain't dealing with David and Judah. Bump them. The whole nation split apart. Then that nation kicked out a whole tribe, the Levites. Just kick them out. The Levites get mad because the king gave their job to just anybody and everybody. So they got mad. Like, how are you just going to give our priestly job to anybody and everybody? We the priests. So they got kicked out. They went with Judah. Benjamin was with Judah in the house of David. And they had to go through their struggle. Next thing you know, Assyria came, enslaved all of the 10 tribes, and relocated them to Assyria and Iran, the Medes, right? And then Judah was okay. They were still holding on. Then they had to go through their struggle. Here come Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, enslaved them for 70 years. So it's just, when you read the story, it's a constant struggle. You win some, you lose some, you get ahead, then you fall behind, you get ahead, then you fall behind, So it's a constant struggle. And we just got to recognize, and we got to be prepared to go through that struggle. Nobody is going to come and relieve us out of this situation that we are in. People have came. People might, those that follow Jesus, believe in Jesus. I used to be against those people, but I understand why. We're just looking for some salvation. You know what I'm saying? And hope, if you don't see, if you're in a box, you're in a cage, you're in a box. You're in a 4-room wall. You're in a cell, You're in a box. Ain't no windows, no doors, no nothing. Ain't no way out. You don't see no way out. All you got is hope that you're going to get out. You don't see a way out. You're just hoping that you're going to get out. And that hope is Jesus. That hope is Yahweh. That hope is Yahweh. That hope is Yahuwah. That hope is Jehovah. That hope is Allah. That's the hope. And so I understand, people that believe in that hope, because they're hoping for a way out. They're hoping for some salvation, But, we gotta go through the struggle. We gotta continue the struggle. The struggle is not over. It's not over, until we reach our goal. So, faith without works is dead. We have to put in the work, and that's the difference between the black Jewish identity and the white Jewish identity is that they're willing, the white Jews is willing to put in the work. They understand that, hey, you got to put in the work of your faith. Ain't nobody that's going to come save us, And that's the difference, is that we believe somebody's going to come save us. Somebody's going to come get us out of this situation. And we're going to be waiting another 5,000 years. I mean, like I said, those that do believe in Jesus done came back how many times? He done came back as Martin Luther King, Medgar Evers, Huey P. Newton, Bobby Seale, Fred Hampton, Assata Shakur, Malcolm X, Khalid Muhammad. I mean, he done came back through so many people. Nobody know what Jesus looked like unless you're looking for the blonde-haired, blue-eyed Jesus. If that's what you're looking for to come back, then, But Jesus as the character of Jesus, the essence, the soul, because supposedly Jesus died, right? So Jesus is a soul. So Jesus is not going to come back in the physical form. Not Jesus himself. But somebody can embody the spirit of Jesus. Jesus can embody the spirit of somebody. So Malcolm X could have been the embodiment of Jesus. Martin Luther King could have been the embodiment of Jesus. All these leaders that stood up for us, that spoke about our economic situation, spoke about, the racial situation, the segregation, what we need to do for each other as a people. Forget, begging these other people to have respect, human respect for us, but what can we do for ourselves? Jesus then came. I mean, I thought that was what Jesus was talking about in the Gospels. I'm pretty sure he said, "Render to Caesar what's Caesar's, and render to my Father what's my Father's." So and this is the things that these leaders were speaking on. The real leaders. I ain't talking about the Jesse Jacksons and Al Sharp. I ain't talking about them. They the scary ones. They the ones that. They like Josephus. When it got down to the wire, when they was behind enemy lines, when the enemy was approaching their strongholds, they held up the white flag and said, "Look, we'll work for you, just don't kill us." So and that's pretty much what happened. They became traitors. In order to save their life, of course, they became traitors. But that's the difference. That's the difference, is that we're waiting. We're waiting for someone to save us. Even though the Torah tells us that we have the ability to save ourselves, and that's the only thing that's going to save us, is us saving ourselves. We are our own savior. We are our own messiahs, And when we understand that concept, that we are the Messiah, you as an individual and collectively as a nation, then we will liberate ourselves. I'm pretty sure all through the Tanakh it says, rise up, wake up, get up, put on your strength. It's telling you to redeem yourself. It's telling you to rise up. It's telling you to wake up. It's telling you to put on your strength. It's telling you that you are his battle axe and weapons of war. It's telling you have the ability. It was said in Deuteronomy, I now have given you the blessing and the curse. The blessing and the curse is in our hands. That's what we don't understand. We think, we can only identify with the curse because the curse is all we ever known. We've only known negativity in our history, in our existence, in our present time. So yes, the curses fits our identity like a glove. But it fits a lot of people's identity like a glove. I mean, you can go all over the world and see different civilizations of people that are living worse than we are here in America. Literally living. You could not imagine what, oh my, I mean, I've watched some of that stuff and it just, I can't watch it. It's so horrifying. And I know the history of black people in America is very horrifying. But to see the conditions that some of these people are living in some of these Asiatic countries and these Middle Eastern, it's, You couldn't kick me out of America if you, God bless America compared to where these other people live at and how they living. Somebody talk about, oh, America's going to burn. I get mad. And where are we going to go if America burn? Because if you seen the rest of the world, nah. I'll stay right here. I'm straight. I can make promise. I can bring Jerusalem right here. I can create the promised land right here. If we wanted to. You know. Because Jerusalem wasn't called Jerusalem when David was king. A lot of people don't realize that. It was called the city of David. So it became Jerusalem. I got a video. Matter of fact, I'm gonna put the videos in my group Hakim. It's called Jerusalem is not an actual place. So if you go in Hakim, that's HAKHIM. If you go into my open group Hakim, go in the videos, you will see a video called Jerusalem is not an actual place. I explain it all in grave detail. It makes a lot of sense. It should make a lot of sense to those that are trying to find sense out of all this chaos. So, it reached who it's going to reach, who it's supposed to reach. If it ain't supposed to reach you, it ain't supposed to reach you, That's kind of like how I look at things these days. So basically, the black Jewish identity versus the white Jewish identity is the fact that white Jews are willing to sacrifice for the success of their nation. And black Jews are not willing to sacrifice, but they want to believe in a sacrifice instead of being the sacrifice. We got to put in the work. And this is why people don't respect us. This is why the Jews don't respect us. This is why nobody respects us. Because we want somebody to come and be our Superman. We want somebody to come and be Batman. Be the, Teen Titans or something to come and save us. We want Jesus to come back and just, whisk us away out of our troubles. It ain't never gonna happen. And any people that do not want to take accountability for their situation, but want to put their situation in the hand of a fictional character, in the hands of a story that's told in a book, you really physically in real time don't want to do nothing about your situation, then that's a weak people. And I don't think any race, any ethnicity that comes to this country and see us and see how bare we are, will have respect for us. And we are a great people, man. Everything that makes life modern today came from us. I mean, if they took us from Africa, they must have took the smartest people out of Africa and brought them to America, because we created things that Africa still doesn't have today. Or if they do, it's imported from America. Technology came out of America. It didn't come out of China. It didn't come out of India. Penicillin came out of America. It didn't come out of China or India. All right? The first translated Bible was translated right here in America. Called the Eliot's Bible. It was translated to the native tongue. All right? I'm just saying, everything that make everything great came out of America, and it came from a people that was supposedly enslaved. So if everybody around the world know that the enslaved people created all the things that make the world great today, and then they come here and see how weak we are, You know, why would they respect us? They would just use us like, you know, they would understand. It would, the way we act almost seems justified to use us. Just like it says, I think this is in Isaiah, where it says they have said, lay down so we can walk over, and you have laid your body down as the street for them to walk over. That's a very powerful verse, because we are laying down. We're not standing up, we're laying down. They said lay down so we can walk over, and we lay down. You know, so we're weak. And that's the difference between us and them, is that we project strength, but we're not doing it in real time. We talk tough, but you know, like the curse say, we should go out one way against them and flee 7 ways from before them. You know, we talk tough and we look tough and we all walk out there and all act like we unified, but you know, soon you hear a little shaking leaf, everybody run this way, that way. Ah, my God! You know. I mean, what? That's not strength, you know. You could take pictures in your garments and stuff, and with your fist in the air, because I'm pretty sure if the Black Hebrew Israelite community, organization, association, was as influential and threatening as the Black Panthers was, they would have did the same thing to the Black Hebrew Israelites that they did to the Black Panthers. The old Black, not this new Black Panther, the old Black Panthers. The government would have did the same thing to the Black Hebrew Israelites that they did to the Black Panthers. If we were a threat, see, the Black Panthers started breakfast programs. They started educational facilities to teach people how to read. They started, you know, nutrition programs once again, daycare centers, Meals on Wheels. They was the first to try to attack a disease that were plaguing Black people. That, you know, we didn't have health care, we didn't have Medicaid and food stamps back then. So they were doing things where people were starving, people were sick, people, you know, was going through illnesses and wasn't able to go to the hospitals and go to the doctors and stuff. So the Black Panthers created organizations and things where people can come there and get help and get assistance. That was a threat to the internal security of America. And this is why the Black Panthers was eradicated like that. You have no idea the extent that the government went to destroy the Black Panther movement in this country. Not because they walked around in leather jackets and held guns, but because they were helping their people. They were actually putting the work of their faith in practice. They wasn't asking for breakfast for their kids. They were giving breakfast to their kids. They wasn't asking for medicine and research for sickle cell. They were actually doing it. They wasn't asking for literacy programs. They were actually doing it. They wasn't asking for food for the elderly people that couldn't get out there and get to the store and get to the supermarket. They wasn't asking for that. They started to go around and give out food. Today, we still have Meals on Wheels for the elderly. That came from the Black Panthers. When Blacks in the early 20s and 30s who left the South It moved to Harlem, New York. It moved to the south side of Chicago, which was a bustling, lucrative black community. Look what's going on in the south side of Chicago today. And look where they dump all the guns and drugs at. They dump it in the south side. But in the 20s and the 30s, the south side was one of the most lucrative, bustling neighborhoods in Chicago. Outside of all the other European immigrant neighborhoods that surrounded the south side of Chicago was actually doing very well. And this is why they destroyed the south side like they, and they still destroying the south side today. When you hear that Chirac, that's only talking about the south side of Chicago. The historic south side of Chicago. You understand what I'm saying? When they didn't give us jobs, they wouldn't give us no factory jobs, but they would give it to the Irish, they would give it to the Polish, they would give it to the German. What we do? We created numbers running. Okay, y'all don't want to give us a job? We'll create a job. And what they do, they made numbers running illegal, destroyed the whole system, then created a lottery. You understand what I'm saying? So this, the difference between us and them is that they are willing to put in the work. They are even willing to sacrifice their own people for a greater goal. What are we willing to do? Because a Jew, an Israelite, knows that they must go in head first, feet first. Whatever they want, whatever they desire, they have to believe that it is already established. God has already ordained this land, this promised land to us. It is already ours. We just have to put in the work to go get it. The promised land was already Israel. They was given that land. But they still had to put in the work to acquire that land. They couldn't just walk in there and say, okay, we home, we good. Nah, they had to fight the Canaanites. Even though he went before them to chase a lot of them out, to give Israel a little upper hand, but even still, they still had to fight. They still had to put in the work. If they wanted that promise, then you had to put in the work. And this is the difference between the black Jewish identity of waiting for salvation, waiting for a Messiah, versus the white Jewish identity of being the Messiah, being the saviors. Because they're saving themselves. They're messiahing themselves. They're delivering themselves. So that's the difference. And if we truly want the identity of Israel, then we have to be prepared to struggle. But realize that we will prevail in our struggle. But first, we have to get comfortable with the fact that we're going to struggle. You can't think somebody's going to come and just take it all away. And that's, it's even to the point that we would disassociate ourselves from each other because we don't believe in Jesus, or we don't believe that somebody's going to come and take it all away. So we like, oh, you don't believe somebody going to come and take all this away? Well, I ain't being bothered with you. What? So these are the things that we need to work on amongst our... Before we try to get somebody to identify with us, we need to work on ourselves a little more. We need to really put in the work. I mean, Jesus didn't win the Civil War. Okay? Yahweh, Yahuwah, Ahaya, Hayah didn't win that war. We did that. We fought. We marched. We did that. And we can do more. If we struggle, we can prevail. We already failing, so ain't no more failure with us. We can't fail no more than we already fallen. So if we just give a little struggle, to our cause, we will prevail. We will prevail. Everybody has to sacrifice. Everybody got to go through a struggle. You know, and if we truly want to be recognized for our greatness, whoever we choose to say we are, if we want to be recognized for the glory that is, then we have to get comfortable with the fact of struggle. We already struggling. But we're struggling waiting for someone to relieve us from our struggles, instead of struggling to relieve ourselves from our struggle. You know? So that's really the difference. It's, you know, the difference between a black Jew is that we're waiting around for something. We're waiting. We're waiting. And white Jews are doing. And that is the concept of Hebrew. It's an action. As far as the language, it's an action language. It's either completed or incomplete. It's not in between. It's not I'm going to do it. It's either it's done or you didn't do it. There's not a process of doing. There's no process of doing in Hebrew. Either you did it, either it's not accomplished or it's accomplished. The in-between part doesn't matter, because the in-between is still unaccomplished. You're still unaccomplished. So you're still at square one. Because even if you're in the process of finishing something, you haven't finished it. So if it's not finished, that means it really was never started. Because in order to start something, you must finish it. So if it's not finished, it really was never started. So if we are in the process of trying to finish something, but it isn't finished, it never started. And you will find yourself seeming as if you're going backwards. But you're not going backwards, you never went forward. Because you never finished what you started. So if we started this fight of liberation, then we need to finish it. What if the Jews in Europe, in Germany, started to leave and go into Palestine and said, nah, we just stay here, we're good? There would be no state of Israel. You know, so we got to finish what we started. That's it. We just got to, as a people. Because we all, I don't care if you black, what you identify as, if you black American, we all suffer from the same plague of waiting for someone, waiting for a representative to speak up about our situation, our cause. You know, oh, Copernic, yeah, he's speaking up for black. Yeah, oh yeah, Farrakhan, he speak. Oh yeah, such and such. Oh yeah, Obama gonna speak up for us. Oh yeah. You know, we're waiting for someone. I mean, it's ridiculous. It's sad. It's weak. It's weak. And if we're supposed to be God's people, oh, God, I mean, we're making God look very, very weak. You know, so it looks like, you know, the gods of our enemies are stronger than our God. You know, so that's just the difference. You know, white Jews have taken their Jewishness into their own hands, and they've created something out of that. Black Jews, we have created nothing but a whole bunch of YouTube videos. And countless meaningless debates. You know, if you wanted to be a great debater, join the Black Hebrew Israelite movement. You would debate your life away. You know, you would debate over a book you ain't write and you can hardly even read. But you're going to debate over it, you know. So, I mean, at least these white Jews, hey, look, they ain't write the Bible, right? They know that. They ain't write it. King James wrote it from England. So what they do? They rewrote it. They created a language and actually wrote the Bible in their language according to how they wanted to read it and understand it and use it for themselves. Smart, right? They say, because if we read out of their book, then we're subjected under their theory. So if you don't see these guys reading out the King James Bible, you don't see it. Why? Because they're not going to be subjected under the British King James religion. No. They created their own language and then they wrote their own book called the Tanakh. Not the Biblos. It's not called the Biblos or Bible. It's called the Tanakh. All right? And they also have other books, the Midrash. Matter of fact, let me go. I think they got a list of them. Just to show you. Gotta turn it around. All right, so hope you can see some of this. Let me change the view here. Okay. There we go. So, all right, so look. This is all they books. This is all they books. Right? They got the Tanakh, you know, Torah, and, you know, they break it down. Torah, the book of, whatever, however they break it down. You know how they break it. I don't feel like going through that right now, you know. But they break it down, T is for Torah, then everything else is like that. And that's what they come up with, Tanakh. But they have the Tanakh. This is one, it's basically the Bible, Old Testament, right? But they rewrite it in their way. Yeah, I know I ain't got no internet connection. Thank you very much for telling everybody. So, you know, they have their language that they created here. They created this in the early 1900s, right? So even though this is English, which is older than this language here, this is way older than this, but doesn't matter. They created their own language. So now they don't, you can X that, they don't need that. They're not subjected to this language and the people who controls this language, but they created their own language. Right? All right, so they got their own language of the Bible, and now they call it the Tanakh. See, that's power. That's power, because you're taking power away from another people and putting it in your hands. Then they had the Talmud, the Halakha, Mishnah, Midrash. Then they got Kabbalism, philosophy. They got commentary. They got their own calendar, let you know when it's when it's what. Daily Rambam, daily Mishnah. So you don't get all this in Christianity. This is their thing. This is a Jewish thing. You see what I'm saying? So that's how they took power into themselves. We don't do that. We don't do that. We haven't done that. We should be doing that, but we haven't. We haven't even started the process of doing that. You know what I'm saying? So if we're not doing that, we haven't started the process of doing that. We ain't thought about even writing our own literature at all. Like, I haven't heard not one Hebrew Israelite, not nobody say, hey, let's write let's translate the Bible for ourselves. And I haven't heard it. I haven't heard it at all. About let's translate the Bible and let's. There we go. I'm looking like, why does it look crazy? All right. But yeah, I haven't heard nothing, of us translating the Bible, us making our own shadors, and none of that. We still reading out the King James Version. Talking about we separated. Seriously? Nobody believe that crap. You know, we just talking. We just running our mouths, just saying a whole bunch of nothing. And nobody's giving us no respect about what we talking about. Because we ain't putting in no work. There's no evidence. You know, you can say a whole lot of things, but if there's no, what we say, show and tell, right? There's no, you know, there's no legitimate physical evidence to what we're saying. We just talking. Yeah, we should, yeah, you know, just run, you know, bunch of hot air. You know. So, the difference between us and them is that we aren't really serious about creating a nation. We're really not. We're looking for approval. Yes. But me personally, if I was white, you know, knowing, I mean, if I was white, why would I give another race the opportunity to overcome me, to be superior over me? I mean, seriously. Really. Why? I mean, these people didn't conquer you because they wanted to be friends, you know. I mean, that's the art of war. I'm not mad at them. They're doing what they're supposed to do. You know? Why be mad at white people? And that's a lot of things. Everybody want to be mad at white people. White people. Why white people don't like me? Why white people don't like black people? Man, who cares? You think white people care if black people like them? No. They can care less about your opinion about them. What matters is you acting right in their presence. That's what matters. Because when you overpower another people, you can care less about their opinions. We the ones that are subjected under them. That's why why you don't like us? You know? Come on. That's weakness, man. Every time you turn around, oh, white people this, white people that, oh, white people. Listen. If you be more concerned with your own people and be less concerned with white people, maybe we'll get somewhere. You know. If white people took anything from us, it's because they was doing it for white people. It makes sense. I mean, really, white people don't have too much of a culture, you know, history. Outside of barbarism, you know, Vikings and all that crap, you know. So, I mean, when they came out of the Dark Ages, you know, in the 1500s, they call it the Reconstruction era. That's basically when the world became round. It used to be flat. That's when East became West, West became East, North became South, and South became North. That's when basically history, world history, changed. That's when the cultivation of science and the world was round, the sun was round, and it was this big, and the Earth circulate the sun and then the moon, you know, this when we get NASA and science and all that crap. You know, all of that illusionary bull crap that don't mean absolutely crap nothing, right? But if you don't have a culture, don't come from a culture, then create one. White people smart, man. You know, if anything, we should have learned. As long as we've been around white folks, we should have learned a whole hell of a lot more than what we know now from white folks. White people are smart, man. I mean, at the end of the day, nobody has a culture. Everybody came up with crap out of thin air. Seriously. Where culture come from? It comes from your mind. So, I mean, you know, you can't get something. I mean, yeah, you can. You get something from nothing all the time. It started off as nothing, then it becomes something. So everybody came from nothing. Everything comes from nothing. You know? From the darkness became light. So the darkness, there was nothing. For the earth was void, without form. There was nothing. And then, light. And from that light, creativity. Now we got all this. World, sun, moon, stars, fish, birds, human beings. But all that came out of nothing. So even if white people came from nothing, they did exactly what they were supposed to do. Create something out of nothing. These white Jews, they ain't real Jews, supposedly. They come out of the Black Sea. But they created something out of nothing. And now look at them today. Goddamn superpower. What are we doing? So we ain't got nothing, but we damn sure ain't creating nothing either, are we? We still talking about, oh, we were kings and queens in Egypt. Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob were black. God is black. And Jesus was black. John was black. Amos was black. Okay, everybody was black. All right. Okay, yes. That ain't paying my damn bills, you know. They ain't putting food on the table for my kid to eat because Jesus was black. Abraham was black. The Israelites were black. They ain't paying, that's not even paying my phone bill. So, that's what I'm saying. We gotta do something. We gotta make something. We used to make something out of nothing. That used to be our motto. You know, you give us lemons, we make lemonade. You give us lemons, now we trying to take it to the store and get our money back. We ain't gonna make something out of nothing. You give us shit, we make fertilizer. You understand what I'm saying? Like, that used to be our motto of making something out of nothing, making the best out of a bad situation, making it better. Now we're just a bunch of beggars. We became a nation of beggars. Complainers and beggars. Not willing to put in the work for nothing. We want a handout. We want somebody to recognize us for whatever we say it is, and then, you know, just drown us in all this approval and acceptance. And we sorry for oppressing you, and enslaving you for. They shouldn't be sorry. You should be sorry for allowing yourself to be oppressed and enslaved for 400 years. Don't be mad at white people for doing what they supposed to do. Really. They came out to conquer. If you was, you know, if our ancestors loved themselves enough, then they would have never got conquered. They would have never got infiltrated. We wouldn't be celebrating Thanksgiving because they would have known not to let them fools on the shore. But we open arms for everybody else but ourselves. We open our arms for everybody else but ourselves. But then get mad when other people are reserved to their own people and don't open up their arms to us. We want to be like, oh, what's wrong with us? Why you don't accept me? Why you don't accept us? They not supposed to. You don't never hear Spanish people, when they going through their problem, they don't say Spanish and black, but you always hear black people go black and Spanish, black and brown. That's why they getting all your jobs, they getting your housing and your loans and all that stuff because you keep saying black and brown. If you just keep black in your mouth and don't worry about nobody else, maybe you will get the benefits. But you keep saying black and brown. So now guess what? All the brown gonna get the benefits. And the black ain't gonna get nothing. But you keep talking about black and brown. You know? Like I just made a live video talking about, you know, the Latinos is gonna be the new face of the Hebrew Israelite movement. Because we keep inviting people in. Thinking that, you know, white people and other people will be sympathetic or empathetic or look at us as equal if we have people in our organization that look like the other people. I don't see other nations, other races doing that with us. I don't see them. Or, you know, if you have one black guy in the mix, it's because of affirmative action. That equal opportunity. You know, so they always have that one black person in there. You know. So we won't go out and protest and make big noise. Oh, y'all discriminating against us. Where's the black person? You know, so they throw one black person in there so we shut up. That's all we good. That's all we care about as long as we see black. Even though, you know, the person that is black might be a straight up enemy. But all we see is black. We cool with that. That's that. Oh, you know. We got a black president. I'm cool. I ain't looking at nothing he's doing. Even though he ain't done nothing for black people, as long as he's black, I'm cool. We got black mayors, black council members, black police. Our neighborhoods are still terrible. Police brutality is off the chain. But we got black mayors, black governors, black senators, black cops, black captains. But we don't care as long as they black, right? I don't care what they do. As long as they black, we straight. I mean, what kind of idiocy is that crap, man? I mean, seriously. Really, that's some idiot crap. As long as we don't care what they do, we don't care if they get in a position where they can help us or can't, whatever. We just want a black person in there. We cool with that. Oh, we got a black senator. That's what I'm talking about. Even though he ain't done nothing for black. I mean, I would think we would want a black senator so the black senator would do something for black people. I would think we would want a black president because that black president would do something for black people. Not just be happy because we got a nigga in office. That's just, you know, but we cool with that. We cool with that. 8 years, this man ain't done nothing for black people. But we cool with that. Now we got a white dude in there that's actually trying to do something for black people in this country. And we don't. You see? Our true identity, which is Aboriginal Americans. We don't want to accept that. We want to be from Africa. Why? Because white people love Africa. They always loved Africa. Ever since Alexander took over Egypt. Ever since Caesar took over Egypt. Rome, all the Mediterranean, they all was right there. Of course they love Africa. But when they came over here, this was the new world. But if they took your land, of course they're going to tell you from somewhere else. Africans know you ain't from Africa. You know, but this is what I'm saying. It's just shameful. It's just, it's shameful. It's shameful. It's pathetic. It's aggravating. You know, definitely when I go on Facebook, I got like 2 different Facebook pages. I got this one, and then I got another one for, I guess, what I call my regular people. right? Because when I first got on Facebook, I guess I had one page. So I spoke like this, and most of the time it was to regular people. People I knew in my neighborhood and stuff like that. Went to high school with. So basically, everybody turned they back on me for the most part. Like, I think I just got blocked by an old friend on my other page because I said I ain't from Africa. You know? So she was like, I forgot how it went. But anyway, I just told her, look, you know, you love Africa so much, then go to Africa. Go live in Africa. I was like, there's no law against a nigga buying a passport. I said $1, depending on where you go in Africa. $1 American dollar will take you a long way in Africa. I said, so you can save up a few thousand. You know, you stack up your money for a good 3-4 years here. Live humbly, real meek. And you go move to Africa. And you can be in Africa. And you can not be in America. And then, you know, you ain't got to keep saying Africa this and Africa that. Take your ass to Africa then. That's what I'm saying. Don't be in my country talking about how good Africa is. Go to Africa. Go. I'm pretty sure there's 1 billion Africans that would love to trade places with your unappreciative ass. Seriously. Because you don't appreciate America and how great America is. No matter the history, America is great because it conquered a great people. But you want to take your greatness and you want to go over there to Africa. Well, go. Because all this immigration and Trump listen. You know, you keep saying you African American. We wasn't African American until after like 95. Before that, we was black, and before that, we was colored, Negro, and then before that, we were colored. So all of a sudden, after like 95, we become African Americans. And now you from Africa? Even though you grew up in the 90s, you grew up in the 80s, you know better. You know better. But that's how infantile, I'll put it that way. That's how infantile. That's how childlike your mind is. That you just forgot that quick. You just going with whatever is told to you. That's what you don't. You can't freely think for yourself. You don't have a mind of your own. You don't even have a mind to investigate or research. Just a little bit. Just enough to clear your mind about some things. You don't even have enough audacity to do that for yourself. You know, so, I mean, these are the things, you know, I ain't trying to get on my people, but if I don't, who will? Really. It's pathetic. It's really pathetic, and it's heartbreaking. You know, it really is. You know, and I understand. You know, like I hold on to. I'm a Jew. I'm a Muslim Jew at that. I'm a Jewish Muslim. I went way off the grid with that one. And I can justify exactly why I choose to be of both religions, but I mean, at the end of the day, I'd rather identify with being a Jew, with being a Muslim, with being an Aboriginal, before I want to identify with being African American or black. Because to be associated with that nation, that race of people, is a stain on your life. I'm serious. It really is. And the more ridiculous we get, the less I want to be a part of the black people. I see why people go and have mixed children and have kids that come out white and don't put nowhere black on it. I understand why nobody wants to be black. I understand why people bleach themselves white. I understand. I truly do, because there's nothing to be proud of coming out of this race called Black American, man. It's nothing to be proud of. Sure, we can be proud. I mean, We can be proud of everything we invented, and we should, but we don't talk about that stuff. We don't talk about the things that we've really done, and those things should help us motivate and liberate us to do more. It's just, the whole situation is terrible, and that situation has found itself into the black Jewish identity. Those same ignorant, stupid, infantile mentality has worked its way into the black Hebrew Israel, into the black Jewish identity, because at the end of the day, these people were still black. And they are trying to find a way out of being black. And that is the ultimate truth at the end of the day. We are trying to find a way out of being black. Nobody wants to be black. If you all know the definition of black. I don't want to be black. I'd rather be white than black. That's all it is. Christian, Jew, Muslim, Moorish, Kemetic. You're a cop. You're a supervisor. You're a manager. You're a landlord. You're a lawyer. You're a doctor. You're a physician. You're a secretary. You're a janitor. Whatever. Whatever title you can give yourself outside of just black. You're a blood. You're a crit. Whatever. You're a vice lord. You're a BD. You're a GD. Whatever you can identify with to get the hell away from being black is better off. And that's a shame. That's a shame. But at the end of the day, we've done it to ourselves. The Torah tells you that. You've done it to yourself. You want to blame Esau. You want to blame the white man. You want to blame the devil. You want to blame somebody. Blame yourselves. Blame yourselves. I blame myself. I blame my elders before me, and them before them, and them before them. I don't blame society. I blame my elders. Society didn't raise me. My elders raised me. My mama, my father, their mama and father raised them. I don't blame society. I don't blame the white man. I blame my elders. And every time you look at the Torah, it says, it told Moses to go to the elders, and the elders should speak to the people. So if the elders is who steered us wrong, it's not the white man, it's not white education, it's not white religion, it's your elders, your grandparents, great-grandparents, and great-great-grandparents. It's their fault. This is why the elders had to die in the wilderness, because their fear, their mentality would have messed up the whole movement. So they wandered 40 years until that generation died. And Joshua brought in the next generation. To the point, they wasn't even circumcised yet. He ain't even circumcised them. That's how this new generation was. But he had to let the old generation die. Joshua was part of the old generation. But all of them died off. Why? Because of fear. They had no strength in themselves. They were so scared. Oh, we're like grasshoppers, and the Canaanites are like giants. What about our kids? God said, okay, you're going to die, and your kids going to go to the promised land. So it's not the white man's fault. It's not the educational system's fault. It's not the politician. It's our elders' fault. You have to remember, it's your grandparents' fault why you believe in Jesus, why you pray allegiance to the flag. It's their fault. Why you believe you from Africa, it's their fault. And what we have to remember now is this generation. And eventually, we will be the elders. Eventually, we will be the elders. So, are we going to make the same mistake our elders made? Or are we going to do something different? Ask yourself that question. as an individual, or if you're part of a camp, you're part of a Jewish organization, synagogue, talk to your people. Talk to your elders. You know. What's the goal? What's the end game to this? What's the strategy? Seriously. What is the end goal? What's the goal? White Jews had a goal. White Christians had a goal. White Muslims had a goal. What's your goal? What's our goal? Seriously, what's our goal? We're gonna keep going around, oh, we Jews, we black, they stole everything from us. We the real Jews. Alright, what's the goal? What's the goal? What's the goal? Are we gonna is the goal is to sit and wait for God to come back? While all this is going on, we're just gonna sit back and wait for God, right? Or we're gonna sit back and wait for Jesus. We're gonna sit back and wait for Jehovah. We're gonna sit back and wait. We're not gonna do anything. We're not gonna do anything but complain and groan and sit back and wait, right? That's the plan. Well, if that's the plan, count me out of that plan. Please, I ain't part of that plan. I want to be proactive. I want to do something. I don't care if I'm recognized by black folks, because nobody recognized what black folks recognize anyway. We the foundation of everybody's ladder. We that first step up the ladder. So that's who black people are in this country. We that first step on the ladder. Or the first few steps. Nobody cares about our opinion or what we think. If they do, they just do it to satisfy, you know, our minds about being included. Or help us not feel like we're excluded, you know? That's why I always had that one black person on the show. So we won't feel excluded. Come on, you little black nigger. Come on, you can come sit at the table with us. It's all right. Come on, you're one of us, but not really. But you can come sit at the table. You know, as long as we can sit at the table, we cool, right? Nothing against white people. Personally, I like white people better than I like black people, to be honest with you. I ain't never seen a white boy come in my neighborhood and just shoot up the block. I ain't never seen a white boy sell, you know, somebody's mama or father crack on the street. I ain't never seen it. Ain't no white boy ever come to me and ask me why I got these colors on. It was my people. I ain't never had a white boy come to me and say, yo, you black as hell, son. Nah, it was my own people that did that to me. The first person to call me a nigga was a black person. It wasn't a white person. It was a black person. But we want to get mad when a white person call you a nigga. Who was the first nigga to call you a nigga? I bet you they wasn't white. I bet you. We call each other niggas all day, all in our music. Nigga. Soon a white person say nigga. Oh my God. You act like you just picked 5 barrels of cotton. Come on, man. Gotta stop playing the victim all the time. That's all we do is play the victim, man. And you know, really, America's getting tired of that crap, man. I'm telling you, a lot of people don't realize this playing the victim card is getting played out. And they're bringing people to this country that don't know the history of America and don't really care about all that black people being oppressed crap. They come from countries where, you know, they don't even got running water. Proper sanitation. So, I mean, us talking about we oppressed, they looking at this country like this is paradise compared to where I'm from. You sound like you spoiled. You don't sound like you oppressed. You sound like a little spoiled child. I got a Sega Genesis instead of a PlayStation or something, you know. So they don't care. And then the media is going to keep putting on TV, us getting beat out of restaurants, us being abused by police, you know. And after a while, it's going to be like we crying wolf. Every little thing that happens, white person looking up and down. Oh, you racist. Oh, you looking at me up and down. You wouldn't do that if I was a And then, with this gentrification, they're trying to get us all back down south, right? So they can really tear us up. That's what they're going to do. They're going to get us back down south so they can really go to war with us. Ain't nobody going to be... the revolution is not going to be televised. Remember that. The revolution is not going to be televised. And that revolution is going to start from the south. It's going to push us out of the north, the Midwest, and the West, and they're going to push us back down south, back to common law states, where they can make up their own laws and their own rules. And that's when they're going to put the hammer down. And you know what? We're going to be complaining. They down here killing us. They down here lynching us. They down here, what was that? Ferguson? Flint, Michigan? All of them. Now, I remember when that came out, right? All that, with the water situation. And I think around the same time, people was talking about pray for Paris or some crap like that. I don't know. Something was happening in the media where most black people ain't even care about the water condition going on in Flint, Michigan. That was not the everyday talk. The everyday talk was Paris or some bombing, some crap somewhere, some fake bombing somewhere that the government orchestrated. Some fake bombing crap. So everybody was, oh, pray for Paris. Oh, pray for Spain. Oh, pray, And I'm like, nobody's talking about Flint, Michigan. And I'm like, this is a straight up attack on the black community. Seriously. Like, this is freaking biological warfare going on down here. You feel me? I don't hear no black people saying nothing. I told my wife, I said, this was the pretext for something greater. It's a pretext. Remember, the government do things in pretext. Meaning, they would, like the Flint. I'm using the best example I can use, right? Because in Flint, Michigan, when they started rerouting sewage water to black people in Flint, Michigan, and majority of black people in this country ignored that situation and were more worried about pray for Paris or whatever stupid bombing white people the media created, right? So I was telling my wife, I said, now look, you see that ain't nobody protesting about Flint. Black people was not going off about Flint, Michigan. Nothing. I said, so now that they saw that black people didn't say nothing about Flint, watch this tainted, poisonous water go to every black community in this country. Now look around. Look what I tell you. Now look around. Every black community in this country has a high level of lead and all type of other chemicals in their water now. Even down to my city. My city had the best water on the East Coast damn near. Not no more. They rerouted the water. Water come out smelling like bleach and all type of gray and stuff now. 2 years ago, there was lead. That was the first sign of lead in the water. Now, it was lead in the water in a school, in a little Portuguese school. And they said, oh, the pipes are old. Then the lead water wound up popping up in another school, and then another school. And all of a sudden, it went from, oh, it's just the schools to, oh, it's just this certain neighborhood. Then from the certain neighborhood to, oh, it's just this section. To the certain section to, it's all the whole damn city. And then they all in the streets putting new pipes down. I'm like, yo, they rerouting the water. The same thing they did in Flint. But when black people didn't rise up for Flint, cared more about Paris or whatever the media wanted us to care about over what was going on with our own people. See, when you don't care about what's going on with your people in Florida, what's going on with your people in California, what's going on with your people in Philadelphia, what's going on with your people in New Orleans, when you ignore that, then they see that they can do this to anybody. We gonna, as long as it's not happening to you, right there in your city, you don't care. See, white people care. I don't care if a white person in California and something went down in Wyoming. they gonna wild out in California about what's going on in Wyoming. Because that's their people. We don't do that. If we gonna protest, it's just because the media is on it. Once the cameras go away, so do we. So because we didn't stand up for Flint, Michigan, now Flint, Michigan has become every black community in America. That just shows you the lack of concern we have for ourselves and why they are able to do what they want to us, because we don't have that much concern about ourselves. So, that's the difference between white Jews and black Jews. White Jews are concerned with white Jews, like they're supposed to be concerned. Black Jews are concerned only with the idea of being accepted by white Jews. That's the only thing we're concerned about. We ain't concerned about our nation. We ain't concerned about the health of our nation, the condition of our people, the economic condition. We ain't concerned about none of that. All we concerned about is the fact that white people recognize us as being Jews. That's it. That's the difference. White Jews are concerned about white Jews. Black Jews are concerned about white Jews recognizing them as black Jews. That's it. That's the whole. That's it. I'm sorry to put it out there. A lot of people might be mad at me, because I'm telling white people some secrets about our idiocy. But hey, rebuke your people and suffer no sin, upon them. Hey, I'm rebuking my people. It's the truth. And at the end of the day, if we don't care about ourselves, nobody has you don't have the right to tell any other people to care about black people when black people don't care about black people. Point blank. You can't make nobody else care about you more than you care about yourself. So that's our problem. We need to love ourselves. We try to find some type of identity to be accepted. When we just all we need to accept is love for self. Once we accept that promised land, that peace that we're looking for, will manifest itself into real time. But as long as we keep reaching out, not accepting ourselves, looking for vindication from somebody else, we're always going to look like the weakest people on earth. We are the weakest people on earth. We really are. So if you want your strength, you want to be Israel, then you understand that you have to struggle. That's the part of the name. Struggle. If you're not willing to struggle, then don't call yourself Israel. If you're not willing to sacrifice, don't call yourself Israelite. You're not ready for the struggle. It took them 40 years and go in the wilderness just to get around the corner. Literally. I think they was only out of Egypt, a month or two, and they was already at the border of Canaan. But because the elders was in fear, they had to travel 40 years just to get around the corner, basically. And that's what we're doing. We've been going through this for almost 400 years. We could have already had liberation by now. We could have already been saved and everything our aspirations. We could have had all that by now. We got fear. Too scared. So that's the difference between white Jews and black Jews. White Jews care about white Jews, and black Jews only care about being identified by white Jews. So until we change that, we always going to be on the bottom. And We deserve whatever we get. Whatever we get, we deserve. Whatever we get, we deserve. Because we have a great neglect for our own survival. So, when you don't care about yourself, you know, you just open Pandora's box, man, for anything and everything that comes your way, you know? So, no matter what religion you in, you Christianity, Islam, Judaism, atheism, whatever, Buddhism, you know, on the individual level, you know, care about yourself. You use the Torah to help govern your life, to help give you a sense of a humbling sense, you know, when dealing through your struggle, because you understand that you have to struggle. It's just something that's just going to be there. It's a part of this whole pattern of life, you know. So, you know, on the individual level, you know, reading this Torah, reading the Psalms, reading the Proverbs, whatever you read, if it gives you good, peaceful inspiration, it gives you clarity, it gives you strength, it humbles you, then use it. Use it. If it's going to make you better, make you greater, make you more wise, make you more intelligent, give you peace, less stress, help you navigate through the jungle of life, use it. Use it. If being black is too depressing and you need to be something else to feel better about yourself, do it. Because being black ain't nothing to it. Your people, ain't nothing to being black. Who wants to be black? I don't. You know, so whatever you got to do to make a positive outcome in your life, do it. You know, and you don't need vindication from nobody. You don't need acceptance. You don't need approval. You don't need a hand clap or a pat on the back. You need yourself, and you need to approve of yourself. And once you do that, sky's the limit, man. Sky's the limit. Because everybody's going to have an opinion, negative or positive. Everybody's going to have their opinion. Some you're going to like, a lot most you're going to dislike. It don't matter. What matters is what you think about yourself, how you view yourself. That's what matters. That's always what matters. As an individual, as a family, or as a nation. You know? You gotta take heed to yourself, man. Take heed to yourself. Start reaching out for other people to, you know, give you strength, give yourself strength. You know? If God is in you, then you already have the strength. Just tap into yourself and you know, it will be of you. That's the only difference between black Jews and white Jews, man. Black Jews only care about being identified by white Jews, and white Jews care about white Jews. They're going to do everything they got to do to protect and sustain and promote and progress their nation. If they got to enslave the world to make sure that the Israeli nation will always survive, hey, that's what they're going to do. If they got to infiltrate and cut their heads and cut their piats and act like they ain't Jews and only be Jews on Saturday, then that's what they got to do if it's for the better benefit of their nation. I mean, they have their own schools. We ain't even started none of that stuff. We ain't done none of that, but we can call ourselves Jews? Cut it out. Cut it out. You know, I got a video on my page saying there are those who say they are Jews but are not. And I was talking about black people, us, who say we are Jews, but we don't hold not one Jewish character about us outside of being slaves. And that's not being a slave, ain't being Jewish. I don't know who told us that slavery equates to some Israelite identity. You know how many slaves is it? The Irish, the whole damn Irish were slaves to the English. You got a whole country named Slovakia, which means slave. You had, the people, the white people that came over here in ships on the good ship Jesus and all that, the Mayflower, they were slaves. This is why they fought their slave masters back in 1776. So, I mean, if you think slavery holds some type of Israelite title, then you lost your damn mind. You lost your damn mind. Seriously. You lost your mind. If you think slavery equates to some type of divine bloodline. That's why they don't respect you fools. The only thing you say, I'm a divine bloodline because I was a slave. Oh, okay, sure. All right, buddy. Anything that makes you feel better, okay? Yeah, you're a divine slave. Idiots, man. Idiots, man. So you gotta wake up. Gotta rise up. Get our mind right. Peace to the family. As I always like to quote out of the books of BLaCk, or what we call Genesis. In thy seed, all families of the earth shall be blessed. Knowing that, I say peace, shalom, assalamu alaikum to all humanity. Peace, peace, peace.